And good morning and welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate you being here with us. Appreciate your patience here this morning as well as we got set and ready to go from the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. You'll find Great Lakes Honda City open for you Monday through Saturday on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. And you can go to, at any time, GreatLakesHondaCity.com and get their information. That's GreatLakesHondaCity.com and get a sneak peek of their inventory and what's available to you on site, on location, at the place that I've gone for my car for over a decade. I have gotten car upon car upon car, and I am a CRV fan, so I'm definitely, so I should say SUV upon SUV, but you know what I mean. I've gotten vehicle upon vehicle at Great Lakes Honda City. I can't thank them enough for their awesome product, the safety of those products, and for having the opportunity to work with great people and get to support the local community. So happy to be at Great Lakes Honda City for myself. And like I told you here on the show, always, I put my money where my mouth is. I'm not going to support something that I don't do, that I don't go to, and that I don't utilize. So make sure you head over to Great Lakes Honda City today. Let them know that DT sent you and find the ride that you're going to be bringing home for just you or for you and the family today. So much appreciation and many thanks to Great Lakes Honda City for all that they do. We are up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe on Facebook.com and YouTube.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. So however you're tuning in, thanks for being with us all around Central and Upstate New York, as well as our second home of Florida, our third home of North Carolina, and all around the world. We appreciate you for being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Jam-packed show set up here today, and inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics and guests for the day. We're going to start things off with my thoughts from Cuse Camp. It's called DT's Camp Talk, and that's something that, I've talked about camp in the past, but calling it DT's Camp Talk is a new way to describe it, and so this segment is going to follow us through camp, and so we'll have DT's Camp Talk this morning. And no, it's not me talking in third person. It's me giving you the actual title of the segment. So we'll get into that just because it's weird. I don't like talking in third person. Very strange to me. So we will get into Camp Talk for Syracuse Orange football here in the fall. And then we will move forward from here. And we will welcome at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Trip Durham is going to be joining the show. We're going to have the Binghamton special. Our Bearcat time is going to happen at 10:30 because that's what worked with the schedule of our guest who's going to be joining us. Happy to have Jesse here from Binghamton Track. So first and foremost, camp talk about Syracuse camp. Trip Durham, who MCs the room at the ACC Kickoff, he's going to be joining me. He's also the founder and decision maker of 2D Consulting, his company. So we'll have a wonderful conversation as we always do with Trip. Then we'll jump into my Bearcat Breakroom, all new special live with Jesse coming to us from the women's track team, and the senior assistant track and field coach as well as recruiting coordinator is going to be speaking with me about Emily Mackay and what Emily has just recently achieved, which is a trip to Tokyo, the alum of the Binghamton Bearcats. And then we'll round out the show with the ingredients to success, proudly presented by the wonderful team at Avicolli's. And that topic for today is the company you keep. It is very important who you surround yourself with, folks, and we'll be discussing more about that here on Wake Up Call in just a little bit around 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So, with that being said, let's jump into this first piece, and that being our conversation on camp called DT's Camp Talk, Syracuse Orange Football Camp, my thoughts on what's going on. So I would love to, first and foremost, take a look at some of these topics here. And obviously the first topic is the QB competition. We all know that. It's what's going on with the quarterbacks. Everybody wants to know who is going to be the starting quarterback for Syracuse. And there's people prognosticating online. I saw some of you write into me on our social media about who this quarterback's going to be, who you already think it is. And the reality of it all, folks, is this has not been decided. And if it has been decided, it hasn't been told, but this is an open competition. It's continued to be an open competition. And when people were wondering what it was going to be, I had the opportunity of speaking with the head coach, Fran Brown, and you can go back and watch that conversation that I had with Fran at ACC Kickoff when I was the one that asked him about camp and said, what are your thoughts about this quarterback room with Steve Angeli as well as Ricky Collins Jr.? And he said it is an open competition, and not only is that an open competition, but that everything is an open competition on his team. You got to come ready to play. If you're not ready to play, then you could lose your starting job. So this was something that him and I spoke about at the ACC Kickoff, and we had the conversation that this is a very open competition. So anybody that's out there telling you the competition is closed, we already know who it is, the reality all the way up to yesterday of the conversation that's been had, and that conversation yesterday was with offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon, is that this competition is open. It is not closed. It is not done. It has not been decided. It is an open competition. And that is the biggest thing coming. And I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I knew going into this thing, and I knew going into ACC Kickoff and coming out of ACC Kickoff, that this was going to be the place where people were going to be focusing their attention, was the quarterback competition. So what are my thoughts? Well, I mean, we don't get to see and I was talking about this yesterday when I was at camp, we really don't get to see a ton of what these guys are doing when it comes to actually getting to see any type of, full-blown scrimmage and, getting to see them out there going up against a defense and making a ton of decisions and planning and whatnot. So to me, it's not as easy to kind of decipher where everything is at, because we're not getting to see it. And it's sad because, I would love to see what's going on. I would love to really get a feel for what's happening with camp as far as the quarterbacks, picking apart a defense and decision making and whatnot, but we don't get to see that fully. And, we get to see them make some throws, we get to see them do some drills and whatnot, but we really don't get to see the full effect of it. And so, anybody that's telling you that they're seeing how they're picking apart a defense, unless they've decided to sneak into camp when we were all supposed to leave, unless they have a drone somewhere, they're lying to you. We get to see these guys drop back and throw. We get to see some wide receivers and tight ends run routes. We get to see them hand the ball off to running backs and go through certain motions and whatnot. But we're not physically seeing them go up against a defense with 11 on 11 and making those decisions. So as far as this competition goes, I could speak to you and say that it seems like Angeli throws a good ball. Some of those passes have been on target. Some of those passes have not been on target. Some guys, it's on them that they could have run a little bit farther. Maybe they didn't make a good decision on the ball. Other times, we could turn around and say that maybe Angeli threw it too far out and whatnot. And when you look, I've seen more of Angeli than I've seen of Ricky. Angeli was also playing closer to where we can stand as the media, and Ricky was on the far side. And, I paid a lot of attention. Full disclosure, I paid a lot of attention to, Ricky in spring camp, and now I'm paying more attention to what's going on with Steve, because we didn't get to see Steve in the spring because he wasn't here in the spring. So now I'm spending more time just really looking at Steve and the work that Steve is doing. Not that I'm not keeping an eye on Ricky, but I've had a closer eye on Steve Angeli with him coming in, because I want to see what he's got. I want to see what's going on. I got to see Ricky throw the ball a bit in the spring side of things, and so now on the fall side, I do want to see what's going on with the likes of Steve Angeli. So it is an open competition again, folks. This is a clear thing. It is an open competition. If anyone is telling you it's not an open competition, unless they know something that everybody else doesn't know, it's not. It is open, or pardon me, that it is, if they're telling you that they don't know. This is an open competition right now. And I cannot repeat that enough because I feel like people have already made a decision. They're like, no, this is going to be the guy, and this is what's happening, and this is this, and this is that, and I know. And it's like, no, I mean, literally, the offensive coordinator's having a conversation with us yesterday about how open this competition is. So, we'll see. There's different skill sets and guys doing different things, but that is the number one question that I'm getting is, how do the quarterbacks look? And that's the number one question that I'm feeling here is people's thoughts on the quarterback themselves. So we shall see. But what we do know is that there's a bunch of new receivers that are in the confines of this camp, and we know that they're working hard. I had the opportunity to speak with Jonte Cook, so we take a look at the wide receiver, right? The wide receiver and tight end room, something that I love that Fran said, because this man has worked so incredibly hard to be where he is today, is that Fran talked about the fact that we are in a situation right now where we are going to be having a tight end room that is led by Dan Villari, and I love this. Dan Villari has worked incredibly hard to get to where he is today, and this man has put in so much blood, sweat, and tears to this. He was a quarterback, then he was a tight end, then he was a quarterback, then he was a tight end, and he also, remember, was from Michigan and transferred in from Michigan to Syracuse, and he's had different coaching staffs, different leaders, different ideas, different coordinators that want him in different places. And now he's running that tight end room, which I absolutely love, that he is not only in that room, but he is considered the leader of that room, and that's coming from head coach Fran Brown. So, you got to take that and you got to really say, okay, if Fran's saying it, then this is what's going on. So much love and respect to Dan Villari and to the work that he's doing and everything that he's put in to the job that he now has to lead this room. So I'm super excited for him. And then when we look at the worlds of the wide receivers that are on Syracuse now, this is another interesting place, right? Because Syracuse's wide receiver room has been added to because of the guys that are coming in and being a part of this team via the transfer portal and whatnot. So when you look at the Syracuse Orange and we look at that depth chart going into this season, keep in mind Trevor Pena in the spring was, well, even before the spring, I think it was back in November, December time, Fran called him a captain of this upcoming roster, and now he's no longer there. So now the question is who's going to lead that room? Jonte Cook II, who comes from Texas. I had the opportunity to speak with him, and you can go and watch those videos on all of our social media. Emmanuel Ross, he's got to step it up. Jeff Nixon mentioned him. He said, this is a time for all these guys to come out, and do what they got to do. These are guys that have been, waiting in the wings, and now they have the opportunity to make a difference here and to really show themselves. Jonte Cook is a transfer junior. Then we have Justice Ross Simmons, who is a transfer originally. And we hope big things for Justice. He is a senior on the team now. Emmanuel Ross is a redshirt freshman, so we get to see him hop out and show what he can do. Jalen Hornsby is a redshirt freshman. And then you have Tyshawn Russell, who is a redshirt sophomore transfer. So a bunch of these guys. And then, of course, Daryl Gill Jr. and Amari Hatcher are the returning guys. They're essentially the old heads, even though Daryl Gill is only a junior and Amari Hatcher is now a redshirt senior. These guys have never been the guy, but they have the opportunity to be the guy right now. So I look to Hatcher and Gill and Ross Simmons because they've had some time here. And let's see how fast, we can see Jonte Cook II and Tyshawn Russell kind of jump into this thing and show themselves. And look at some of these redshirt freshmen like a Jalen Hornsby and see how this shakes out. So that's another big question mark of who's going to be the guy and how deep is this wide receiver room going to be, and can they lean on a bunch of different wide receivers? I mean, last year you have a great quarterback in Kyle McCord, and not only do you have a great quarterback in Kyle McCord, you have the fact that he had so many different places that he could throw to, and he knew that. He knew he had the weapons. And so now who are those weapons going to be is a question that comes up, and it's a question that's going to be answered as we hopefully go through camp. So I'm very excited to see that side of it. And then we look at, when we stay on the offensive side of the ball, we look at the running back room. Other topics that are coming up here in my camp talk for Syracuse Orange. The running back room, LaQuint Allen is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So with LaQuint in Jacksonville, the question becomes, is this Yasin Willis's team to lead? Is this his running back room that he's going to be moving forward? And that's a topic of discussion. The Will Nixon is back off of injury. He told me that he wanted last year to be his last year, but because of the injury, he decided to come back. And so now with him back, the question becomes, how does he fit in to the thing? And, how does he fit in to what's going on at Syracuse in the backfield? And essentially, where do some other of these other guys fit in when you have so much talent back there and you have two Malachi's, Malachi James and Malachi Coleman, and both of them being spoken about as having the speed? So there's that side of it too. So that's something else that you have to look at, is the speed that they're going to bring to this, and how will they utilize them? Will they be used in kick and punt return? Will they be used in catching out of the backfield? Are they going to have pitches to them? Will there be trick plays? And, Yasin Willis told me yesterday when we had our conversation, and you can go back and watch it. It is a full conversation with Yasin Willis, many minutes spent with him, which I appreciate and thank Syracuse for. I've gotten to take a lot of time with the running backs, Will Nixon and Yasin Willis, here in fall camp. I got to have extensive conversations with them about multiple topics, and you can find that on our social media as well as on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And if you want to go back in time and look through all of our coverage on our YouTube channel at wakeupcalldt, there is a Syracuse football playlist, so make sure you check it out. But Yasin Willis said he wants to get back to being him. Some people, obviously he wore a different number at Syracuse prior to wearing 6. And so somebody had written into me and said, is Willis gone because we don't see him there? I said, nah, he's number 6. And I asked him why he's number 6. He's like, hey, that's the number that I used to wear. It's a number that he grew up with. And he said it's a sign of him becoming who he used to be. And I asked him, who he truly is as a running back. Not who he used to be, but who he truly is. And I said, who is that? And he talked about being a downhill runner and showing more of that. So Yasin Willis and the crew, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be Yasin and Will splitting time? Where do the Malachis fit into this? We got to see Hart last year. Does Hart have a place in here? And I would imagine that one or multiple of these guys are going to end up somewhere on the special team side of things, returning the football. So that's something to look at. I also kind of feel like maybe Jonte Cook would return some kicks, but we'll have to see. These are my thoughts. It's not something that Fran said to me. It's just my thoughts. The next thing here is looking at the trenches here. Topics when we're speaking about Syracuse fall camp here in 2025. The topic of the trenches, offensive and defensive line. Who are those dogs going to be, right? We have Demetrius Weatherspoon coming back, and we imagine him at left tackle. But you have Cam Pringle, who's a redshirt freshman transfer. You have TJ Ferguson, who's a redshirt senior transfer. Austin Collins, who's a redshirt senior transfer. Zach Rice, who's a redshirt junior transfer. And then you have Byron Washington, who's a true freshman. Khalil Stewart, who's a true freshman. Josh Miller, redshirt sophomore transfer, who had put in original transfer to Syracuse. He obviously has been at Syracuse. He put his name in the portal. He took his name out of the portal. So he's right now, you look at Josh Miller and Austin Collins at center and what that could be. Mark Petrie is still on this team. Joe Cruz is still on the team as well. But you've had some guys finish up their time. Xavion Washington completed his eligibility after playing at Syracuse for a season. You have Enrique Cruz Jr., who made the decision to leave and transfer to Kansas. So, Austin Collins and Josh Miller, people don't talk about the center enough. The center doesn't get enough respect. The only time you really hear anybody talk about a center is when the snaps aren't good, when things aren't going where they're supposed to be, when the timing isn't right, and they don't seem to have a good relationship with the quarterback or what the quarterback needs when they need it. But when a center is doing a good job, you typically don't hear anything about them. Now the question becomes, who is this center going to be? We saw a mixture in Fran Brown's first season as the head coach at Syracuse and first season as a head coach in general of him utilizing different people at center last year. Now we have Austin Collins and Josh Miller and who is going to take that job, as he mentioned both of them. He also mentioned, speaking of Fran Brown, he mentioned Matt Hahn. Matt Hahn, somebody who's been on the show a bunch of times. I've covered him numerous times and followed his story. He's from Christian Brothers Academy down the road in Syracuse, New York, right down the street, a few minutes from the Ensley Center where Syracuse practices indoors. And of course, not only Matt Hahn, but you have Darian Williams, who's a wide receiver who comes from CBA, a teammate of Matt Hahn, and another teammate of Matt Hahn, Dante Baccier, who is a tight end that comes from CBA. And then you have an offensive lineman in Cardi Shepard, who comes from CNS. So a bunch of local guys given scholarships in Fran Brown's second season at Syracuse from the local Central and Upstate New York community. And of course, you have, David Clement, who comes from another CBA. He comes from Christian Brothers Academy in Albany. So there's upstate New York in him being on the team as well. And Matt Hahn being brought up by Fran Brown, I thought was tremendous. And to me, that was great to have him be a part of that conversation, especially early on in camp, that we are hearing the name Matt Hahn, who is a true freshman, and he's a local guy. And so he's working on that offensive line to find his place. This is a big question mark. What is this offensive line going to look like? Because, again, besides Josh Miller and a Demetrius Weatherspoon, there's going to be probably a lot of newness in the world of these guys that are going to be starting at the both guard positions and at one of the tackle positions. And then we'll see what happens and what shakes out at center. So I'm excited to see this. And when we look at the actual weight of these guys and height of these guys, what I said in last year's camp, and I'll continue into this year, is Syracuse has bigger linemen than I have seen in arguably my entire time covering this team. They now have the biggest linemen. And when I spoke with Yasin Willis and I asked him about the O-line, he said, we got some SEC type guys, like SEC bodies. And that's a massive compliment because the SEC is the best conference in college football. So when you look at the offensive line now and you look at what we're talking about body-wise and these big dudes, you have, I'll start with Khalil Stewart, 6'4", true freshman, 330. Austin Collins at center, redshirt senior, 6'3", 305. Ted Olson, offensive lineman, redshirt sophomore, 6'2", 285. Zach Rice, offensive lineman, redshirt junior, 6'5", 320. And then you have Patrick Alberga, offensive line, redshirt senior, 6'3", 295. Demetrius Weatherspoon, who returns to the team, offensive tackle, redshirt senior, 6'7", 320. You have Nikhil Bertrand, offensive lineman, redshirt sophomore, 6'6", 320. You have Jackson Yak, who is a true freshman, 6'4", 300. You have Carter Clark, redshirt junior, 6'5", 295. You have Skylar Harvey, a true freshman, 6'7", 330. Adam Boeheim, redshirt freshman, 6'4", 285. Dejani Scatliff, true freshman, 6'7", 315. Vito Shevchenko, who is a redshirt freshman, 6'7", 310. TJ Ferguson, redshirt senior, 6'4", 320. Cardi Shepard, true freshman from CNS, 6'7", 310. Jaden Mann, true freshman, 6'4", 315. Mark Petchy, redshirt senior, 6'4", 301. Josh Miller, redshirt sophomore, 6'4", 320. Matt Hahn, true freshman, 6'6", from CBA, 310. Travion Mack, redshirt sophomore, 6'6", 320. Byron Washington, true freshman, 6'7", 400 pounds is what we have Byron Washington at from DeSoto, Texas. Cam Pringle, 6'6", 6'8", redshirt freshman, 335. And then you got Joe Cruz, redshirt junior, 6'5", 315. Travis Brown Miller, redshirt freshman, 6'6", 330. So you go up and down that thing, and you got right by 300, 300, over 300. In the case of Byron Washington, 400. In Syracuse, there was a time where Syracuse, didn't have any guys 6'6" and higher. And you got Brown Miller, who's 6'6". You got Pringle, who's 6'8". You got Washington, who's 6'7". You got Mack, who's 6'6". You got Matt Hahn, who's 6'6". You got going through Cardi Shepard from CNS, who's 6'7". You got Shevchenko, who's 6'7". You got Skatliff, who's 6'7". Harvey, who's 6'7". I mean, you're talking about these big old dudes on this team. Bertrand is 6'6". Demetrius Weatherspoon is 6'7". So, I mean, when you talk about the height and you talk about the weight and you talk about those bodies that Syracuse didn't have, they definitely have them dudes now. And that's a big, big thing for the Syracuse Orange as we take a look at, where they're at in this camp. When we look at just the offensive line and we speak on the trenches. When we go to the defensive line, Kevin Jobity Jr., you look at Jobity and you say, all right, so that's a guy who has returned to the team. And that's something to, obviously pay attention to. This was a third string guy at one point, though. And, we have him talking about the fact that he wants to come out here and dominate. So when you look at Jobity, and I'm going to go to the defensive line and we'll talk about the guys that are here. I mean, returning wise, you have Elijah Fuentes Cundiff, who's a redshirt senior, 6'4", 295. And then you look at Kevin Jobity Jr., who is a senior, 6'4", 300 pounds. Rashard Perry, who is a junior, 6'3", 295. And because and they got a bunch of these guys that came in that are going to be new to the crew. Dennis Jaquez Jr. comes back, though. You have senior, 6'4", 265. Isaiah Hastings, redshirt junior, 6'4", 310. But up and down this line, and then Dion Wilson, Tank, he comes back here this year, redshirt senior, 6'5", 305. So you do have some returning faces on the defensive line, and you imagine that Tank Wilson's going to have a bunch of play out there. You got David Amapariola as well. So you look at that, Rashard Perry, Elijah Fuentes Cundiff, Kevin Jobity Jr., your returning faces. But what do you do with the rest of the guys? Chris Thomas, do you have him on the interior? You got a legacy guy in George Rooks, a redshirt senior transfer. Where does he fit into this thing? Is he going to be on the interior of the line? And then you have a David Reese, who's a senior transfer. Where is his space? So you do have some more returning faces, more on the defensive line than the offensive line, and guys that you would imagine are going to be out there, like an Elijah Fuentes Cundiff or a Tank Wilson or a Kevin Jobity Jr. But then it becomes who else is going to step up in the grand scheme, and a Dennis Jaquez Jr., pardon me for not mentioning him once again. Where is he going to fit into all of this? So I'm excited to see how the trenches are going to work out in the grand scheme of things with Syracuse's defensive line, because you have some of those returning faces. And then beyond that, the other thing is Demetrius Samuel Jr. A lot of people asking about this guy. Demetrius comes onto the team, so, I'll put Samuel here on our board, and we're talking wide receiver, DB. So, mum's the word on how this guy is going to be used, but I did have a conversation in the spring camp side of things where we were discussing the fact of, what guys could be and what could happen. And the conversation came up that we're going to see Demetrius be a two-way player, and that there's a lot that, he could potentially bring to this squad, which I'm really, really excited that this is going to happen here. So I'm very much looking forward to what we're going to see with Demetrius Samuel and how is he going to be utilized? I mean, Travis Hunter just won a Heisman for being a two-way player, a wide receiver, and a DB. So that's something that, Syracuse has not had in a really long time. It's not something that Syracuse I mean, you look at some of the guys back in the day at wide receiver that could go both ways, arguably, and do a bunch of different things, or guys that could be, on special teams as really strong returners and play wide receiver. Now, looking at this, having a Demetrius Samuel, Syracuse puts themselves in a new world. And I think that this is great. I'm really excited for Demetrius Samuel. I think the fans are probably growing in excitement for what this could be for the Syracuse Orange and how this could really show itself as far as how often we're going to see him and where we're going to see him. So Demetrius, this is a cool thing. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I can't wait to see that. So I know that's another big thing with camp. Like, really, honestly, in my opinion, when, being there at camp and listening to the other questions that are being asked, the conversation comes down to hearing quarterbacks and hearing Demetrius Samuel and how he's going to be utilized. I mean, these are the two big topics of discussion. Demetrius Samuel Jr., a true freshman who is 6'1", 195. He comes to us from Palm Beach, Florida, from Heritage High School. And the true freshman, we'll see. I mean, he's got life, right? I mean, a true freshman, if he decides to stay at Syracuse and does well at Syracuse, who knows what this is going to look like. So these are the big camp conversations that we have. The other one that we have, we know who the punter is going to be in Jack Stonehouse. He holds the all-time record for Syracuse in average yard per punt with 45.7 yards. He achieved that last year. But now the question becomes, who's going to be the kicker? Because Brady Denneberg, who is great on kickoff, and in my opinion is also a good kicker when it comes to field goals and extra points, and I don't put it all on him last year, how many blocked kicks that you had, because that comes down to scheming. It comes down to really what you're doing in the coaching world, how you're scheming up something, and the blockers. It's not just the kicker. I mean, the kicker's taught to see that ball come in and get it up, right? See the ball come in, the holder holds it, the holder's got to hold it right? It's on them too, and then you got to let it go and release it. So I think that Brady Denneberg going to Minnesota, that's a loss for Syracuse for sure. And when we look at what else is here, so I'll put the kicker up here in our topics. Who's going to be the guy? Is it Jaden O, who's a redshirt sophomore returning? Is it Trip Woody, who is a redshirt freshman transfer? Or is it Jan Bogdan, who is a true freshman? I mean, this is a big-time question mark because Jaden O stepped in at times, but he wasn't the guy that was there all the time. And without Brady Denneberg, at least on kickoffs. Remember when Brady Denneberg stepped in originally before Fran Brown even got to Syracuse, and it was Dino Baber's team. I think there was like 2 times the entire season Brady didn't kick the ball into the end zone or out of the end zone. I mean, this guy does not give you a chance to return at all. And so that's why when people question his kicking ability and is he good on field goals and extra points and whatnot, I'm like, have you seen this dude kick off? This guy is sending the thing literally hitting the wall or hitting the white line in the back of the end zone. He wasn't getting, I mean, it got to the point where it was just kind of laughable. A guy even, I feel like the guys that were standing there trying to return these kicks for Brady Denneberg were like, they just see it go over their head, over their head, over their head. And it's like, dude, why am I even standing back here? Like, what is the point? This is a waste of time. And so, now who's going to be the kickoff guy and who's going to be the field goal guy and who's going to be the extra point guy and is it going to be the same guy? Is it Jaden O? Is it Trip Woody? Is it Jan Bogdan? We'll see. It's a big time question mark that's not being talked about or maybe it is, but I haven't heard it in camp by and large. Who is the kicker going to be for Syracuse? So that's a big time question here in what I'm calling DT's Camp Talk, Syracuse Fall Camp, addressing a bunch of the main topics here. Quarterback competition between Steve Angeli and Ricky Collins Jr., 2 transfers. Ricky Collins transferred in, and I got to break that story from LSU to let everybody know that he was, in fact, on the team when they traveled to the DirecTV Holiday Bowl in San Diego, California, and was practicing with the team ahead of the bowl game. And then you have Steve Angeli, who came over after spring ball, who I covered in the college football playoff, and obviously covering each round of the playoff and seeing that he came in for Riley Leonard, who's a friend of mine, and, going 6 for 7 and helping the team beat Penn State by a field goal, 27-24. We look at wide receivers with a bunch of new faces. We look at a tight end room led by Dan Villari. How much will he be involved in the blocking as well as the catching world? And will Jamie Tremble, will he step up? His older brother Tommy Tremble is in the NFL. And so where is Jamie going to be? Is David Clement going to be involved as well? So those are all questions here. And then we look at the running back room. Is it Yasin Willis? Is it Yasin Willis and Will Nixon? And where do the Malachi's fit in? The trenches, big old bodies, the biggest bodies that Syracuse has had in a long time, and what Yasin Willis is calling SEC-type bodies on the offensive line. The defensive line returning more than the offensive line, and What are these two lines going to look like? Because I never forgot it, and I will say it on repeat. George O'Leary, former Syracuse assistant coach and the head coach for a long time of Central Florida, who had a ton of success there, said to me, you build in the trenches. Championships are built in the trenches. You build a team from the inside out. If you don't know that, then you should do something else other than coaching, is essentially our conversation that we had in Rhode Island many years ago. Demetrius Samuel, wide receiver DB, where are we going to see him? Are we going to see him at both? And who's going to be the kicker for Syracuse? Those are all conversations here at camp, and I will continue to bring you my interviews and my coverage of camp as we move here through August all the way to the final weekend in August, where we will see the Syracuse Orange play away from home in their first game of the season, and that will be on neutral ground as they face off against the Tennessee Volunteers, who also have a new quarterback, and that ACC SEC matchup is going to be in one of two games in the AFLAC Kickoff Game World happening at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which I'm all too excited about. And keep in mind, the season ended at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta with the College Football National Championship, and I was there to watch Notre Dame and Ohio State. And now the season begins with the AFLAC Kickoff Game at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, and by the grace of God, I will be there as well. So looking at the bookends of how last season ended and how this season's beginning, and having it in Atlanta and then being able to be there for both of these opportunities is a true blessing from God. Keep in mind that there's two AFLAC kickoff games this year, ACC, SEC, Syracuse, Tennessee on Saturday, and on Sunday we have Virginia Tech and South Carolina. And ironically, South Carolina's quarterback, former commit to Syracuse, Lenoris Sellers, and he is a nationwide known quarterback. So we'll see what Lenoris can do. That would have been interesting if Syracuse played South Carolina and Lenoris Sellers played the team that he could have been on. That would really be an awesome matchup. I'd love to see that. I mean, if that can happen next season, then let's make it happen. So we're going to take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Thank you for following me through camp coverage here, and we'll continue to have that coverage, as I said, as we go through camp. You can see all my interviews by going to Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, or going to youtube.com/Wake Up Call DT. And if you click on the Syracuse football playlist on our YouTube channel, you will see over 200 videos that we have had over time. So make sure you check those out. We'll be back inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios right after this.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicolli's restaurant, located on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, has been serving our community for decades. Your place to go for home cooking on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road is just minutes from Liverpool High School. And every single month, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is on site, on location, with Liverpool sports, student athletes, coaches, and administration telling their stories throughout the year. We look forward to seeing you on site at Avicolli's for their casual pizza side, their fine dining, as well as their bar. And of course, you can order online at myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. For takeout, delivery, and catering, call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. Come on into the neighborhood spot Avicolli's, open 7 days a week in Liverpool, New York. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is your home away from home for your furry-loving friends. Open 7 days a week with drop-off and pickup times in the morning and later on in the day and early evening. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is the spot to trust with your dog for short and long-term stays. Call 315-299-4013 for more information. That's 315-299-4013, and go to k9campground.com as well. That's K9, ground.com, where you will find all of the information on their different cabins, which include the classic cabin, executive cabin, grand cabin, and luxury cabin. K9 Campground Dog Boarding, where your dog will have indoor and outdoor areas as well as their own private cabin for any size, any breed, as well as dogs with different needs. Dog parents and dogs alike choose K9 Campground Dog Boarding. Isn't that right, Lily? Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And as I bring in the gentleman of the top of the second hour, which I'm always happy to have him here on the show, Mr. Trip Durham joining us here. He is the founder and decision maker of 2D Consulting, and we're here to speak on the ACC Kickoff here in 2025 and the world of emceeing, which he's done very well for many years. And so with that being said, here inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, Trip, how are we?
We are well, and if I could just get an intro like that from my wife every morning, that would be fantastic.
What would your wife say if she introed you right now?
That's a really good question, and as you asked that, I'm thinking, what type of music would she play or not play if I walked into the room? So how about I get back to you next August and we can have that conversation?
Fair enough. Trip Durham here with us, and Trip, you know, we had an interesting I mean, there's a lot going on at the ACC kickoff, but obviously the elephant in the room, the patriot in the room, right? With Bill Belichick and the fact of, I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me personally, I had not experienced. Now, I know that Dabo Sweeney can fill a room. And I know that when it comes to Clemson, that room that you and I are in, that main press conference room, there's table, there's obviously the long tables everywhere. There's seating in the back. There's places to put cameras. And so there's plenty of room. But typically, Clemson is the one that fills that room. When it came to around 147, I think, 143, 147, somewhere around there, before the 2 o'clock for Bill Belichick, the room got so full, people up and down the wall. And I don't know if you noticed this, but it was so clear as day to me because I've never experienced it in over a decade of being at the ACC kickoff. When it hit the time that the coach was supposed to speak, you could hear a pin drop in that room.
Yeah, and you could do that not only with North Carolina when they came into the room, but you also heard that, or didn't hear that, oddly enough, throughout the entire 3-day stretch. And I think it plays to the brand of the league, not only the coaches that are part of this league, but also the student athletes. And it is fun as a study to watch each school as they come in and the type of questions, the type of energy. I will say in 2025, and I'm running a risk of being comparative in this statement, but it felt different, like there were more people attuned to more programs. Not that they haven't been in the past. Yeah. There was just a really fun energy about Charlotte in 2025.
Yeah, and when you look to that energy, do you feel like it's just the uptick of the conference by and large, that the entire conference has maybe gotten more eyes on it, more focus on it? Because we know that Florida State over the years, they're going to have attention. We know that Clemson's going to have attention. We know North Carolina, with the event being in Charlotte, is going to have plenty of attention, and of course Duke. But what would you attribute to the fact that you feel like this season and this ACC kickoff felt a little bit different in a good way, or progressing on the upward, if I should say something like that?
Well, I'll lean back on the quarterbacks again. This league over the last few years certainly has had a number of marquee, highly trained and highly prepared position players like quarterback. I think a lot of it too, Dan, is the national conversation of college athletics. There is so much in the news every day that there are more and more people interested in more and more aspects of the business of college athletics. So to use your term, uptick, there's probably an uptick because there's so much to be learned hourly that I think people want to hear what other perspectives are. The student athletes this year that were in Charlotte, that were in the press conference room, again, at the risk of running a comparison, which I'm not, their focus this year was really tight. You could tell the student athletes were well prepared because of the life they've been living in this new world of college athletics. So 17 programs, 3 student athletes, whatever that math is. I'm not very bright when it comes to that. Every one of them had something to offer. So that room is full at times because there are a lot of people wanting to learn more stuff. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I mean, and you have to be really conscientious of your time, and you being the person that is in the room serving as host when it comes to these press conferences, you have to watch that, right? Because you have your head coach, and you don't know, each of them gets to make an opening address, but you don't know if that opening address is going to be the banging of the drum in the conversation for many minutes, or if it's going to be a simple few statements. And then that gives you whatever time is remaining for that coach to have questions asked to them, as well as the student athletes. With 3 student athletes in a half an hour time, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I can't give everybody 10 minutes, right? Because there's 30 minutes, there's 4 people. So, the coach is going to get the majority of the time. And then how do you divvy it up amongst the student athletes? So, the dance of that to MC and to try and gauge, knowing that you don't have a specific meter for each coach, right? Everybody can be different. So how do you do the dance of that, and coming off of it, kind of reflect on it?
Well, at the risk of sounding pedantic, which I hope that I am not, backstory for those of you that are watching and listening, each program, each school has 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And generally it's 15 minutes for the head coach. They will either make an opening statement or they will not. They have the option. And then after their 15 minutes, that's a combination of opening statement and Q&A from folks like Dan in the room. After their 15 minutes, they retire into a director's chair that's on stage, and they are switching spots with a student athlete. There are 3 student athletes from each school, and those student athletes divided among them a total of 15 minutes. So when Dan references the dance, there are some student athletes that are very comfortable at the podium.
Yeah.
There are some that it's their first time with the bright lights and not knowing how many people in the room. There are some that may be taken aback, takes them a minute or two to get comfortable. By the time they're comfortable, we've got to rotate off to the next student athlete or excuse the school altogether because the 30 minutes is up. So the dance is always interesting, and it's real time. It's figuring, okay, that's the cadence of that person. I think I can get one more question asked from the room, or because they could go long with the question or with the answer, and I'm bumping already against a tight stop, I probably need to end it now. So 17 schools, 3 days, each at 30 minutes. It is a study of how to be a moderator, how to be an MC, and I'm still going to school every year, trying to get better, trying to learn. It's fun.
Well, and on your side of it too, you also ask questions, right? So you prepare yourself for each of those 17 schools to have something there if you need it. How do you put those? I mean, I've gotten to hear your questions over the years, and some similar theming that you've utilized at times, and then some that are really very much in the moment of hearing something that somebody said and wanting them to go a little bit deeper. How do you put together those questions? Is it essentially a set of, I can ask this to any one of the 17 schools, or is it, hey, this is someone who's been here before, this is a coach I have a good relationship with, I know I can go here with that person?
If you're a moderator, if you're an interviewer, whether it's for a podcast or a fireside chat, a panel discussion, whatever it is, I think there's a way to look at any number of bits of information. For me, it's a box score. It is a season recap of stats. I like to find elements, questions that are inside the numbers between the lines. And if we know that we have a linebacker coming in and we look at the defensive stats, either of that student athlete or of the team, generally you can find something within the stat matched against their record from the previous year that creates an intriguing question. Yes, Dan, there are certainly generic questions that can be rolled out to any student athlete, any coach. One of my go-tos is, do you have to win a championship in order to call it a winning season? And you can ask that question of 100 people. And for the most part, I think you'd get 100 different answers. Now, you may get 50 yeses, 50 nos, but within the yeses, within the nos, there's going to be their own perspective as to why, yes, we have to win a championship to call it successful, or no, we don't have to. You're going to get that reason why. So I think it's just being creative in how it is you pull the data points and what it is about your personality and the personality of the person that you are asking the question of as to what type of response you may get. I love finding the personality at the podium that has just enough of a shoulder swagger about them, or the way that they're holding the podium to let me know that their personality may be receptive for a really fun question. I asked one of our student athletes, what was it like growing up in a town of 7,000 people? And he said, man, we had chickens all over the place. We had cows in schools, and he had a big smile run across his face. I knew that his personality would accept that question. But there are some people that just would not accept a certain question. So I ramble on. So that's the backstory.
No, and I mean, being someone who asks questions for a living as well, I mean that, to me, it is a very interesting thing to do because in the case and you hear from people afterwards, like when Dan Villari stepped off the podium, there was other people in the room media wise, and they said, "You have a good relationship with him, don't you? Like you guys go back, like you have a connection." They said, "We can tell because of what you're asking him." Mm-hmm. And I mean, his story was so unique. And I know, like you said, when you look at the data points and you look at the personality, you look at how they hold themselves at the podium, and then you also look at statistically and the record and whatnot. A guy like Dan Villari, I would say, we live in a world where there are a lot of transfers, but he was someone who transferred a few years ago from Michigan to Syracuse. But I would consider his story to be unique. You don't hear as much of Michigan to Syracuse, or school to school, I should say. But then he was a quarterback, he was a tight end, he was a quarterback, he was a tight end. Now he's leading a tight end room. And that, to me, when I asked him that question, I wanted the world to know, like, you're not just looking at a guy who happens to be playing tight end who maybe you don't cover Syracuse and you don't know as well. This is a man who has been asked multiple times to change who he is on the field and the dynamic of how he plays. And so, those unique stories, can you go to one yourself where you really looked up someone's background and where they've been and what they've done, and you thought, wow, this is truly something we don't see every time the stage happens here at ACC Kickoff?
Yeah, to ask me that on the spot, I would have to say that I don't have one that comes to mind. If I were to pull up the questions on my other monitor, I could probably find one. I like hometown questions.
Yeah.
I like small school questions. I do, to your point, I do like to see the journey. If we have somebody that started in the Great Northwest and then finished on the East Coast, and I think we did have one of those a couple of weeks ago, there is that question of culture, of style, of weather. Yeah. So there are places where you can find the intriguing if you just look at it creatively enough.
Yeah, and in his world, I mean, just very, very unique. We did have one special teams player, and I always wonder, Trip, who we're going to have. Is it going to be a kicker? Is it going to be a punter? I don't know I don't think we've ever had a long snapper, but the one this year is a gentleman that I know, and his name is Jack Stonehouse. He's coming off a season at Syracuse where he set the all-time record of average yards per punt at 45.7, which is almost averaging half the field every time he punts the ball. Your thoughts on when a specialist comes, because I know that you make a note of that to yourself, and this year there was only one, and sometimes there's none, and I think maybe we've had a kicker or a punter here and there, but it is few and far between. And this year, of 17 schools, and 4 altogether because there is another student athlete that's in another room. So when you put that number together, you have 68 players. One of them was a specialist this year coming from Syracuse.
Again, for your fan base, know that the coaches have the ability to bring 3 student athletes to be in the press conference room, and then the 4th can be in another interview room, could be working with the social media team. And in the past, this is just my observation, nothing more than that. In the past, it's felt like that coaches bring student athletes who have reached their senior season or have elevated themselves in a team role, and it's almost a deserving moment for them to come. Just my observation. But over the last couple of years, given the portal and the transfers and everything else, I think the coaches are now bringing the representatives that they feel like represent their teams the best in an environment like that. So we have one special teamer in your punter and Jack, and Jack's carriage at the podium and his mustache, the way he was answering questions, he told somebody in the room that he had gone out punting with someone. Mm-hmm. And when I woke up that morning, I didn't think I would hear those words strung together in that way. I went out punting with that person. So I had to ask Jack, what in the world does that mean, going out punting with someone? What does one do when they go out punting with someone? And I think I caught him by surprise. he really played the answer as best he could. But then I saw him in a break room afterwards, and I apologized. I said, I hope I didn't throw you off. He goes, no, and he stood up, Dan, and he buttoned his coat, and he looked at me right in the eye, this young man. I mean, his carriage was great. He goes, no, it's just something we do. And he went on for about 5 minutes. And you just tell there's just some really good student athletes out there.
Yeah, and, I mean, there's been some great punters that have come through Syracuse history, and Rob Long and Riley Dixon and Sterling Hoffrichter, and now Jack Stonehouse is that next guy. The other element, and we've kind of addressed it here this morning here with Trip Durham, founder and decision maker of 2D Consulting, speaking on the 2025 ACC Kickoff in the world of emceeing, as we are here inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. The transfer portal and seeing what it has done uniquely to the experience of being at a media days when it comes to college football, in the fact that we saw Brendan Armstrong, and I had him on the show and aired it during ACC Kickoff week, is that he was a Virginia quarterback, and then he was at ACC Kickoff representing Virginia, one of the few student athletes on stage that the coach trusted to spread the message of the Virginia Cavaliers. And then all of a sudden, here's Brendan Armstrong, but he's in red, and he's with Dave Doran at NC State. Well, this year, we got to see that in Tommy Castellanos, who last year was representing Boston College and with Bill O'Brien, and this year he's representing Florida State and there with Mike Norvell. How do you take that? Do you do the double take and kind of, because it's like, I know that guy, I know that name, I've seen that graphic, but it's a different logo.
Yeah, and that's, I think that is the plight for a lot of us as fans readjusting to this world that is college athletics. We have that memory, oh yeah, just as you described, they were at such and such school. It is interesting to watch how the student athlete carries themselves, but by and large, and I'm going to say it's 100%, by and large, when they are at that podium, when they are representing their school, they are an advocate, an ambassador. They are someone ready to just wear those colors through and through like it was the colors that they wore the day they were born. I don't know where I would have been at 19 or 20 years old if I had had the amount of change in my life that they have in theirs. I don't know that I would have handled it in the way that these student athletes are handling the questions in the different environment. But this conference, this league, these students, man, they do a fantastic job.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I'll joke with the guys about, like, hey, I remember you from last year. So, but it just to see them in a different atmosphere, well, with a different team, I should say. And in some cases, the colors aren't even that different. So I'm like, you could have wore the same suit, could have had the same tie on. But one of the guys that was very animated, and I've been at animated press conferences before, and I see things, I guess, in a different light because I'm a glass half full and positive person. So I don't look at things for the negative angle and what bad things could this bring, what ominous tone is this. But when Mike Norvell stepped to the podium for Florida State and started day 2 of this 2025 ACC Kickoff, I have known Mike Norvell for many years. I knew him all 4 years at Memphis, and I've known him the whole time at Florida State. And so he is someone that I consider to have more than just simply the, hey, coach, how are you doing relationship. And when he stepped to the podium this year, he was very, very passionate. It made me recall being at the old Big East before it became the American, and Steve Adazio stepping to the podium for Boston, or for Temple at the time, pardon me. And when he stepped up for Temple, he was so close to the mic and he was so passionate that mic was losing every battle it fought that day. And in the case of Mike Norvell, we saw him come up to the podium. Thank you. He starts his his opening address of the press conference. And as he's going, he's building. But if people paid attention, he was building at moments where he felt like he really needed to bang something home. And then he would kind of calm a little bit and then go back there. When you see a coach so passionate, and I don't think there was anybody else that stepped to the podium with that type of fervor and energy, what do you take away from a moment like that? Because I know what I saw, and I don't want to load the question. What did you see?
What I've always appreciated about coaches is that you can tell which coach is being painted by the stereotypical brush of being a coach. You mentioned Adazio. When Steve was at a podium, when he was finished, you wanted to suit up and you wanted to go blow through a concrete wall. Every coach has their personality. What I appreciated about Coach Norvell in day two and being the first team, the first person on stage for day two, is that he gave the room a lift.
Yeah.
He gave content creators a lift. Sometimes you can have a hangover after day one because you are in a darker room. It's your first time being in that setting in 4 or 5 months. You've got fake air being blown into a room. So the environment is different and you could feel tired to start day two in a room like the press conference room. But Coach Norvell came in and gave everybody a lift, set a tone not only for Florida State for the season, but I think set a tone for the rest of kickoff in Charlotte, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I love seeing the energy. I want to go back to Bill Belichick. And is there anything that's kind of in the way that I mean, and I will say this too, he came in on the other side, right? Every coach comes in on the right side of the room. He came in on the left side with his people, and so he was away from everybody. But is there something that stuck out to you about the Bill Belichick? Because obviously there's the fanfare. You could see security change over the 3 days. It was like the first day they kind of looked to see if you had a badge. The second day they're looking to see if you have a badge, and it's getting a little tighter. The third day there's ropes going up the elevator. They're blocking this area in. You got people outside, faces pressed up to the when I was like, I'm not, and the third day, I'm like, I'm not even trying to go anywhere near the entrance to the hotel. I'm not trying to go out. And I said, after the team prior to North Carolina, I said to the gentleman next to me, I said, I'm not going outside because I'm not going to look at the ridiculousness and the parade that's happening right now. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to be ready. And I want to know from your point of view, did it feel different? Did it look different? Did the senses go off in a different way of this? Because there was so much build up to it, people talking about it, people flying in just to see him for 5 seconds and leave. Just what your take was on this.
I think I was laughing. For those that are watching, I was laughing at your description of day three. I wasn't laughing of anything else. And you were a little overzealous in the description of ropes and everything, but
there were ropes.
You painted the picture of how day three was different than 1 or 2, for sure.
Yeah.
What I can't remember which media member it was, and I don't remember which coach that wasn't Boston College or North Carolina that they asked this question of. But the idea around the question was, we have leadership now in this football role that has so many qualities and are former NFL coaches that just seem different than what we've had in the past. So when you ask the question about difference, I don't know that I'm going to assign it to one person at North Carolina, and I wouldn't even assign it for coach at Boston College, but I think that we have such a difference in how it is that we as an industry, I'm a coach, that as college athletics is operating, that I think every program brings its different set of questions and curiosities. And when it comes to Coach Belichick at North Carolina, it's really no different. And we've all watched him as we've grown up with football, watching his style. And I think there was a curiosity, and that's why the room was built the way it was built with so many people in it. It just, people wanted to see, touch, and feel, right? Because there's been that person on the other side of the plasma screen, is plasma still a thing, on the other side of that screen for so long that now he's in this room with me here in Charlotte, and I get a chance again to touch, feel, and listen.
Yeah, and I think the question was asked to the Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key, and he said, "Is this a Georgia Tech question?" And so he was not really having that. But I will say this: the rivalry side of things that I absolutely love when Haynes King, the quarterback of Georgia Tech, steps to the podium, and at some point within the answer to one of the questions, he said, "And it's to hell with Georgia." Like, having those moments when you hear that, there's all these things that we've talked about that are hovering around college football and collegiate athletics that we didn't have before. The transfer portal and NIL, and is it pay for play, and the collectives and the house settlement and all that. And then there's moments where we just see the old school leather helmet in the trenches, cleats to your shin. We're going after it. And I feel like that Georgia Tech moment with Haynes King brought us back to that, like, hey, remember, this is about rivalries, this is about football, and we are really passionate people. And I love moments like that.
And for those that were sitting in the press conference room for all 3 days, the one word that I think was used more in description than it's ever been used before is the word dog. And it's a compliment, right? The old junkyard dog. You played with tenacity and ferocity. You just got after it. Well, when Georgia Tech was up there, and it might have been Haynes, there was a media member that I called on who I think had come into the room just to be part of the Georgia Tech contingency. And so when I see somebody like that come in, okay, they're local, they're in the market, probably should get to them because we won't see them again, and they want to do their job, they want to ask a question. Well, he referred to Haynes, I believe, as playing like a dog. And he asked that in the face of the Georgia Bulldogs. And somebody, it might have been Coach Keys, somebody on stage went, saying, no, he played like a Yellow Jacket, didn't play like a dog. D-O-G-S, not D-A-W-G-S, right? So to your point, there are some really fun moments in that room.
Absolutely. And I want to do something with you, Trip, that you and I don't get to do when we're in this room together, but we're used to asking the questions, but we're not putting each other on the hot seat. And I want to put us in the moment of being able to ad-lib, which you and I both do, and to put each other in a position to ask a question that neither one of us anticipates. So we call it rapid fire here on Wake Up Call. I'm going to allow you to ask the first question to me in the moment.
Dan, how much do you pay your interior designer to outfit the room behind you?
Everything in my room has a purpose and a reason. So literally everything. So nobody is paid to do this. I do this myself. And it's an intricate thing in my studio where there's nothing. You could point to anything in this room and I will tell you the story of why it's there.
Follow-up question. Would you be willing to pay somebody to decorate it for you?
Are you asking, do you need a job?
That is not the case. This keeps me busy enough.
I know it does. I know, I'm just messing. But no, I mean, would I pay somebody else to do something like that? I don't know. I mean, I guess if somebody had some ideas, I would welcome their ideas to see what they have. But there's some very meaningful things. And I will say that these two things that are off camera that I always make it a point that I look at during the show, and I'm going to bring these up because of who they represent. This is my grandfather, my mom's dad, pardon me, my grandpa Cavino, who is in the Navy in World War II, and the hat still says T.A. Cavino inside of the hat. This is his hat from World War II, and it's something that I received when he passed away. And then my dad's father, he was in World War II as well. He was 18 years old on the front lines in Germany for the United States Army, and when he had his final job, he was at Miller Brewing Company and he ran the forklift. This was in his cake. I still remember him taking it out of the cake, icing all over the wheels, handing it to me so that I could take the icing. My grandmother going, "Don't give him all of that." And my grandfather goes, "Okay." And he acted like he cleaned it off. And when she wasn't looking, he handed it to me with just as much, if not more, icing. So in memory of two people that are with me daily from heaven to earth, that is, I would say, the most important thing in my studio. And you don't see it because I want to make sure that I remember why I'm here and what I'm representing. So I stare at it every day.
It's good stuff.
My question back to you, Trip. We see the 2D consulting part of your little studio digs in place here. What is something that you have in your room that you feel is very representative of who you are?
So you can't see the whole thing here, but it's a proclamation from the city council or alderman, I guess, maybe in New Orleans. I'm a past president of a National Association of Collegiate Marketers, and our convention in New Orleans, along with the athletic directors, it's one big body. Our convention in New Orleans was the first one in New Orleans after Katrina. So for all the leadership that had something to do with programming, they issued a proclamation with everybody's name, each individually. That says, thank you for believing in New Orleans and coming back. Because the convention had committed to New Orleans before the storm and stayed with the city after the storm. So when it comes to paying it back, paying it forward, to upholding your commitments, to doing what is right, that is one of two mementos that I have from my sports life that mean a whole lot to me.
Yeah, I love that story, and I love the city of New Orleans. You have a final question for me. What is it, sir?
If you were not doing this, would you either be up on a roof roofing, or would you be out on the streets paving?
Man. Well, I will say that my skin does get dark, my natural color. So if I'm outside, I'm going to make sure that I'm getting back to my normal. So would I be paving or would I be roofing? What a question. I have never been asked this before. I guess I would.
I hope not. I don't even know why I asked the question.
I guess I would be roofing because my favorite character is Spider-Man, and I'm not afraid of heights, and I do like jumping up onto things, and I always did that as a kid, so put me on the roof, I guess.
At the time of this recording, it is National Underwear Day, so I have this thing that maybe you've got Spider-Man underoos on right now, and I know that's a dated reference.
Yeah, I would say that I don't, but I do. I could have just made this really awkward and been like, underwear for who? But I will say that no, he's just always been my favorite character. With great power comes great responsibility, and the responsibility to make sure you have underwear on when you go to work. So my question back to you, Trip. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot in the superhero realm, and I'm going to challenge you with this. And I have asked this to student athletes. You are going to become a superhero. What superhero does Trip Durham transform into? What superhero do you pick for me? You can't pick Spider-Man since I loaded the question with that. So you have to become one, I become one, and we have to pick a city to protect.
Well, Superman is the obvious because the ability to fly. I think that perspective would be really cool. I want to be sarcastic and just say you're the invisible man so I don't have to see you. But that wouldn't be true. Superman didn't really have a sidekick, so it'd have to be an unnatural pairing. So as I talk it through, you've been pretty good with a pen. You've been pretty good with a mic, which is an apparatus. It's a tool. So maybe Thor would be you because of the mallet and your ability to crush it at times. But what city? It need to be a city that I'm familiar with and maybe that you're familiar with because of the footprint. So we're going to go defend Charlotte. How's that?
I like that. Superman and Thor defending Charlotte. I love that. That's good.
My day can only get better from here.
Hey, listen, it's the first time that I've been compared to Thor, so I will take that, and I will take the man who can control lightning, and I will bring that with me as the mic drop of this conversation. Trip Durham.
Yeah, and which, by the way, a mic is a very revered piece of equipment. No one should ever drop a microphone, Dan.
Well, mine does not. Listen, one of them fell, and it was by accident, and it put a little dent into it, and it's my OG microphone that I love dearly, so I refuse to stop using it. I just feel like the dent shows character. So Trip Durham here, founder and decision maker of 2D Consulting, speaking on the ACC Kickoff, the world of emceeing, and a world where him and I protect Charlotte as Superman and Thor. Trip, thank you for your time, and my best. And I want, the next time that you and I get to speak, I want to know the song that your wife has chosen as your walkout song.
I will let you know in October. I'll see you then.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you.
Coming once again from Trip Durham here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. And I always appreciate my conversations with Trip. We now have the opportunity to bring you our Bearcat Breakroom. And in the Bearcat Breakroom, this is where we get to tell the stories of the Binghamton University Bearcats. We do it every single week. We do it Tuesdays, typically at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. But for this week, we had to adjust a little bit to 10:30 as we have the opportunity to welcome someone to the broadcast that we have never had on the broadcast, and that is Jesse Fuca, who's going to be joining here. Jesse Fuca, who comes to us from the world of women's track, and very happy to have Jesse on the broadcast as we are on the heels of Emily Mackay finding her way to Tokyo and continuing her incredible story that she has had in the world of track. So as we get Jesse set here, we want to thank you for being inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Binghamton University gives us the opportunity to tell the stories of the Bearcats, student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni all throughout the year. And as I said, every Tuesday to feature Binghamton here on Wake Up Call from inside the Great Lakes Honda City studio. So as we await having Jesse here on to the broadcast, once we see him in our queue, we will bring him onto the broadcast here with us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, for this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom. And I want to thank the Binghamton University Bearcats for all that we have gotten to do over the past year plus in telling the stories of Binghamton University. So with that being said, and without further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to bring in, for the first time ever, Jesse Fuca to the broadcast. And as we bring in Jesse, happy to have him here with us on the heels once again of Emily Mackay heading to Tokyo, and he was on site for that event. So Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Thank you for having me on as well.
Absolutely. And as the Binghamton Senior Assistant Track and Field Coach and Recruiting Coordinator, that is a mouthful. What is the day-to-day like for you, Jesse?
So over the summer, it's a lot of recruiting. This is the first year that I'm really traveling in the summer, taking, Marcus Johnson, who just recently graduated, out to this USATF meet. But a lot of recruiting, having people on campus, making phone calls, things like that. Day to day during the year, pretty much on the track from 9 to 5, and processing the rest of the paperwork and compliance stuff and all that. Just kind of helping with Coach Thompson with whatever he needs. And I coach sprints and hurdles mostly, but help out wherever I can.
And like you said, helping out Marcus, and then obviously going and supporting Emily and whatnot, living in both worlds of men's and women's track and field, just what that's like for you. And the events, like you said, that you work closely with, the events are the events, right? But to live in both worlds and to be able to expand your horizon, expand your footprint, working with men and women student athletes, just what that means to you to be able to do all of that in an all-inclusive atmosphere.
It's a privilege. It's a lot of fun, having both men and women to be able to coach and work with and everything, and practice. We train and compete and everything together. So it's a big family. It's a big team. Everybody treats each other with respect, and it's a good time. I think the women bring, a level of discipline and focus to the table. The men bring an intensity to the table, and they kind of key off of each other, and it just kind of amplifies the practice environment and everything. So it's definitely a blast.
And like you said, having them working together and practicing together, right? Not having to have these separate moments. How heated does it get? And is there a playful, passionate back and forth between the men and women of Binghamton saying, all right, you got that one, I got you next?
It depends on the rep, with the hurdlers specifically, the height of the hurdles, the distance that they are set apart and stuff like that. The men's and women's hurdlers can kind of touch down on the ground at the same time a lot of the time. So those practices can get pretty chippy, but sprints practices and stuff like that, I'll typically set the reps off at different times, just so that I can focus on people's technique and form and how they're moving, and be able to get proper splits and all that. So I might set the guys off, and then a minute later set the girls off, and they kind of run in groups and all that. But yeah, with the hurdlers, it can definitely get chippy because they again, the dynamics of the event kind of create that environment. So
yeah, when you talk about hurdles, there's something that I've brought up before. in the world, and speaking with hurdlers and in the collegiate world, and I've asked them this question, and they've answered it in a way that I found funny but also real. Why, Jesse, I'm going to ask you this flat out. When I was in high school, they would put us on a track. And once a year, they would say, you're going to run a mile, which means we had to run around the track 4 times at the school that I was at. So and you didn't want to come in last. So either if you knew you were going to come in last, you kind of looked like you didn't care because you were trying to paint the picture of it doesn't matter to me, because the last thing you want to do is come in last and then get made fun of in the cafeteria. And then our physical education teachers decided we're going to put hurdles out. And I just want to ask you this question, Jesse. Now, I've realized that and I said this in the last conversation with Trip Durham here this morning, my favorite character of all time is Spider-Man. And I like to jump and climb and do things and challenge my body in ways that maybe other people would not do. When they put the hurdles out, all I thought of was, I want to pass Jim. I want to do well. I don't want to, I want to have fun. And so I jumped these hurdles and I had success jumping the hurdles. My question to you, though, is, you know what it takes to jump a hurdle. You know what it takes to have the right amount of speed and timing and bodily movement to be successful with this. Do you think it's smart for a gym teacher to take someone who is not in track and put a hurdle out there and say, good luck to you?
Honestly, I'm going to answer that with some previous work experience. So I used to work for Nike, okay, and they had a saying where everybody that has a body is an athlete. So, credit to that gym teacher. I think a lot of people shy away from, more technical events or things that might be perceived to be a little more difficult and more intricate. But how are you going to find out if you don't try? So throwing a bunch of high school gym kids into a bit of a hurdle race sounds like a blast to me.
It was fun, and I'm happy that I could do it. Yeah. But I would say to you that, like, me looking back on it, as an adult, I'm like, that's probably one thing where you're like, of the 30 students I have in this class, someone's going to have an injury. Someone's going to go to the nurse's office. I'm going to tell you something that I do when I jump hurdles, Jesse, and I don't do it on purpose. It's just how my body works. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this before. This could be crazy to you, or maybe it's normal. But when I would jump a hurdle, I would jump up in the air, spin 360, get down, jump, and do it again. For whatever reason, when I hurdled my body, I also spun my body. Have you ever experienced that before, or am I literally living on an island by myself?
Hey, you might be the Fosbury of the hurdles, creating new techniques and bringing the event to new places. So yeah, I personally haven't seen that one, but it sounds impressive.
Listen, and if I thought about it, then I'm probably not doing it. It's one of those things where my body just did it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is fun. Let's see how this works out. But you said, obviously working a lot in hurdles, were you someone in school that lived in that world? Were you a hurdler as well?
Yeah, so I was primarily a 110 hurdler. I dabbled in the 400 hurdles. It wasn't my favorite event to compete in, but love coaching it. It's really a blast to work with the 400 hurdles, as being on this side of the fence. But yeah, so I primarily ran the 110s. I did the relays and sprints and everything like that as well. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into coaching in that world too.
Do you have a favorite event that you did growing up? One that you feel like if you could just do that one for the rest of your life right now in this moment, snap your fingers and you're there. Is there an event that you consider your favorite?
The 110s were definitely my favorite event. The 200 was my favorite event that I never got to compete in often. It was always kind of the like, hey, we're taking a down week, or we've trained really hard and we don't want you to run your main event. Let's try the 200 and have some fun with it. But I never got to take that one seriously. So looking back, I wish that I ran more 200s and had a little more fun with that one. But the 110s were the primary. That was my bread and butter.
I want to look at, when you talk about your history, I want to look at some history that you have that I think is incredible when we name off some of these accolades here. In 2020, you helped to charter the Binghamton Student Athletes of Color for Success, the SACS, and you've been the advisor of that group ever since. Why was it important for you at a time where everyone's worried about a pandemic and people are focusing on maybe not how they move forward and how they do. Like some people took I always said that, like, you can take a pandemic and you could take anything out of your control and you could say, this is unfortunate circumstance. I'm going to stay the same. I'm going to become a worse version of myself, or I'm going to become a better version of myself. There's people during COVID that challenge themselves to do more, to be more creative, to put their time and energy not toward fear, but toward success of trying to help others. You did that in 2020 when you chartered the Binghamton Student Athletes of Color for Success, SACS. Why did you decide to do it, and why was that important for you to not only have back then, but to carry it to today?
So the group actually started, kind of the concept of it came in 2019. Credit to Brittany Corsa, Janelle Williams, and Latoya Shand, three of my female athletes at the time. Just after practice one day, was having a discussion with them, and you know, the long and short of it is it's really easy as an athlete to kind of get siloed into just your team community. You know, not get familiar with the other athletes in the department. You know, even campus wide, you know, the student athletes are kind of less apt to participate in clubs and activities and things that are going on for the regular student body. So with those three women, kind of came to the conclusion that, like, hey, it would be a great idea to create a community within, you know, just the student athlete population, even where some of our student athletes of color who, you know, maybe don't have as many people on campus who look like them or have similar backgrounds, you know, you can connect with people that are on the soccer team or the lacrosse team or the basketball team, and track and basketball at Binghamton tend to be our more diverse teams. But some of the sports we have, you know, maybe one or two student athletes who, you know, identify as a person of color. So being able to provide them a space where they can, you know, convene and come together with people that are, you know, again, of similar backgrounds. So, like I said, we started the idea in 2019, you know, in the fall. And as COVID kind of hit and everybody was kind of in panic mode and the NCAA was shutting down, I went to Pat Elliott, who was then our athletics director, and it was just like, hey, we can't let this get swept under the rug. You know, we got to make sure this is a priority. And the first few meetings were like 8 kids on a Zoom call, you know, kind of similar vibe to this, and just figuring out, like, okay, how do we make this group work in a pandemic environment, which provided like some really cool opportunities. We had some guest speakers come, Olympians and people that were world-class athletes came and talked to our kids about, you know, what it took to get to that level and balancing, you know, being a world-class athlete with maybe being an advocate for their community, you know, outside of sport. We had people come in and talk about networking and professional development that were from like the NFL and NBA Players Associations, you know, things like that. So the beginning of the group, although it was a little awkward at first, starting on Zoom and just kind of getting the group off the ground, provided some really awesome opportunities for our kids to hear from, you know, people that occupied some pretty elite places and spaces. So it's been a lot of fun working with that group.
Well, yeah, and you know, I appreciate the backstory and the information and the credit of how this was getting built in 2019. You said you've had so many different guests from different walks of life. Who were some of those guests that you really felt like had a message that resonated with the student athletes at Binghamton?
So one of the people that came on and spoke to our athletes was Gwendolyn Berry. She was a world-class hammer thrower. So, you know, again, being that a lot of our diversity came from track, having a track and field person come on and talk to them was really cool. And Gwen Berry is very, you know, outspoken in the community about athletes' rights, and, you know, especially, again, given the times of 2020, what was going on politically and everything, she was very much, you know, using her voice and speaking up. So having her on a Zoom call, it was really intimate. I mean, the athletes got an opportunity to, you know, really dive deep and ask her questions and speak with her. So I was able to kind of plug that together. A buddy of mine worked for USATF at the time and had a connection with her, and she was able to come on. And that's somebody who, you know, had we not had the pandemic, there's no way we would have been able to get her all the way to Binghamton's campus and do something in person. So, you know, like you said, find an opportunity where, you know, some people kind of shut down. We had to get creative. So,
Yeah, and that was a task that I put to myself. I said, "Yeah, we're going to come out of this thing better than we went into it." And that the whole sunshine, the sun rising out of the coffee cup, my logo, we did all of that. I called, and my graphic designer also happens to be somebody I went to college with, and John Granquist. And I said to him, I said, "Listen," and those are my words. I said, I'm going to take this time to be better. I'm going to take this time to challenge myself. I was extremely busy. People are like, "What are you doing? There's no sports going on. Did you stop your show?" I said, "No, we were booked 3 weeks out. We had incredible stories, as always, by the grace of the wonderful guests that God has blessed me with, and just building relationships with people. And we took all the logos we had and we improved all of them. And then we created logos for ones that we didn't have, like shows that didn't have logos yet. And so, when I look to that time and I see somebody being advantageous during the pandemic in a positive way that's bringing people together, I love hearing that, and I appreciate and I applaud what you did as well as your student athletes.
Thank you.
Of course, man. And then when we look at other things here, certifications, USATF Level 1, USATF Level 2 in sprints, hurdles, and relays, USATF Level 2 in jumps, and USTF CCCA strength and conditioning. Those are your certifications. To somebody who doesn't know track and field, what does this mean to you? And do you get to, this is how I look at it. When you have certifications like that, I don't want them in my office. I want them as like badges of honor on my chest. So bring me into the certifications that you have.
So the level 1, level 2 thing, USATF, through their coaches education, they have 3 levels of coaches education. Basically, level 1 is kind of like, hey, let's introduce you to our system. This is how we coach as USA track and field coaches. It's a very general, kind of paint with a broad brush, track and field coaches course. The level 2, they break into event groups, and the way I describe that one is that they essentially give you the tools to be an elite coach. So they dive deep into, the one certification was sprints, hurdles, relays. The other that I took was jumps. For a brief stint, back when I was at a different university, I coached the jumps, and I had to go get my certification and figure out how to do that, because I wasn't ever a jumper, and kind of got thrown into the fire with that one and all of that. The level 3 certifications, which I don't have yet, basically, kind of to your point, they are a badge of honor. In order to earn a level 3, you have to have coached a national level athlete. You have to have your level 2 as a prerequisite, but if you haven't gotten anyone to a national level, NCAA meet or USA track and field meet, you can't go get your level 3. So level 1 is like, here's our system. Level 2 is here's how to be an elite coach. Level 3 is kind of like, you've been an elite coach, here's how to get to the next level. With the strength and conditioning cert, that was something I did 8 years ago. Just being able to speak the language with some of our colleagues. Strength and conditioning, at its core, that's kind of what track and field is. It's all, conditioning and then strength building.
Yeah.
So where our sports performance coaches, Bill Bacon, Lori Gleason, Brian McGovern, they condition a lot of our team sports. So, the work that, the basketball teams and soccer teams and lacrosses are doing, when they run, when they are, speed building and things like that, they're doing that with our strength and conditioning coaches, and they're also building the strength program. With track and field, we are primarily doing the conditioning. So as the event coaches, we're the ones that are doing all the speed development, all of the aerobic development for our distance coaches and everything. We're programming those workouts. So pretty much half the job is taken off of the strength and conditioning coaches' plates, and they're just concerned with strength for us. So being able to connect on that level and speak the language that they speak, not come at it from a track coach's perspective, but understanding kind of their world a little bit more was important to me, so that I could connect the dots a little bit better and say, hey, like, we're working on, these aerobic or anaerobic systems today. This is the goal that we're trying to get neurologically, what adaptations we're trying to do. Here are some protocols and things like that might amplify those adaptations, as opposed to, Just going in and saying like, hey, I need my kids to get stronger, or I need my kids to be more explosive. What does that mean from a more neurological standpoint, from a more scientific standpoint? So that's what that cert was all about. But yeah, definitely, along the way, all the education, courses that I've taken, I've had some great instructors, and that strength and conditioning one, Bouchek Snyder, who's a legendary coach, he was the instructor for that. Really just like kind of eye-opening course, and helped me get to where I'm at now. So,
well, and I appreciate the background on that. You spoke about, not just walking into a room and saying, help my guys get stronger, help my girls get stronger, right? You spoke about the neurological side of it. What does that mean? And the scientific side of it. When we look at neurology and we talk about the brain and we look at the science of it all, I'd love to go deeper into that and what you've learned of that and what that means, because so many people talk about how fast is someone, how strong is someone, but neurology and science, that just piqued my interest of you discussing that, to go a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, so one of the common refrains that I hear from a lot of people is like, you can't teach speed. I think that's kind of a common team sports trope in a lot of levels, is like, if you're fast, you're fast. You're born fast, Yeah. I even have like a gift that like a buddy gave me. It's like a really old school coaching book from like the 1960s, and on the part where it talks about how to coach sprinters, the first line is that, a boy is either born fast or slow. And so to that, yeah, I always say, like, I wouldn't have a job if that was true. As a sprints coach, sheesh, I hope that you could teach speed. I hope that you could make people faster, because that's what I do every day. When we talk about how to actually train speed, I think a lot of people focus on the skeletal muscular system. The distance coaches are focused on, kind of the cardiovascular system, building the aerobic engine and doing a lot of long runs and, all of those kinds of things. With sprinters, a lot of people focus on the skeletal muscular. So building strength, becoming like, a bulkier, stronger athlete. And I think my philosophy, the crux of it, is that that's actually not the most important system. We should be focusing on neurology, wiring our body properly. So almost looking at the coach as like an electrician per se. Okay. Automatic is fast. So think about anything you've ever done. If it's reflexive, it's fast. When you don't take time to think and you just act, when the doctor hits your knee with the little mallet and your leg just kind of shoots out, if you had to think about that motion, it wouldn't be as fast. It's not a reaction. So when the gun goes off, I want my athletes to react. So we're looking at practice every day as kind of rehearsal, more so than practice. I'm not looking at the day-to-day as, how to get stronger muscles and things like that. That's more of a byproduct. When we do technical stuff, we're walking our neurons through how to move properly. When I program like our strength and conditioning, when I get with those coaches and work on that stuff, the protocols that we're following, we're trying to figure out how to convert muscle fibers from more slow twitch or even like there's some muscle fibers that are fast twitch that can convert to a different type of fast twitch. And we're trying to get more fast twitch muscle fibers so that we can be more reactive and just kind of act automatically. So again, anytime you got to think, you're processing what you're doing. The gun goes off for the 100-meter dash, and you're thinking about your foot placement. You're thinking about where to kind of push the ground and how to propel forward. That's going to be slower than if you are just wired properly. So the neurological adaptations and being able to get proper myelin sheathing on the neurons and stuff like that is paramount. Being able to just be automatic and be wired properly. So yeah, again, kind of you look at like a contractor, let's say, and they go into an old house. What's the common trope is like, oh man, the last guy wired this all wrong. So they go in and they rip out all the wiring and kind of put new wiring in and, get the house set up properly. That's kind of how I look at my job is, figuring out where the wiring is wrong and how to set it up properly.
So you're essentially working with these student athletes to wire, like you said, wire them properly. Is it stimulation of like the scientific side of things? Is it like, how are you getting their brain to essentially make decisions for their body without them having to think about it?
So through the weight room, a lot of it is, through certain protocols. So how many reps are we doing? How many sets are we doing? What type of intensity are we looking for? So you could take like an exercise like a hang clean. And if you're doing, 5 sets of 5, you might be working on kind of more power development, things like that. Whereas if you cut the amount of sets back and you're doing, maybe 5 sets of 2, you change the percentages a little bit and you're focused on producing a higher rate of force. So rate of force production.
Yeah.
So, by manipulating kind of the parameters that we're working in, you can get their bodies to respond in different ways. So, again, when I was a student athlete, I kind of looked at it like, oh, you go in the weight room and you just push the weights. So I was trying to just always kind of increase how much weight I was doing. But tracking bar speed, making sure the velocity of the bar is moving fast enough to get the neurological adaptation we're looking for. If you can move 250 pounds at 0.8 meters per second, that might not be wiring you as properly as moving 225 at 1.0. So tracking different parameters and different metrics, key performance indicators, things like that. And even when we're doing, our sprint workouts, when we're on the track, a lot of the time when we're working on technical stuff, I kind of slow things down to speed them up, I say. So I kind of talked about rehearsal. Putting a sled on somebody, even with just 15 pounds or something like that, so that they have a little resistance, their body is able to produce higher rates of force at better angles. This way, when I take the sled off, they can kind of get more in those positions automatically, and not have to think about being in those positions per se.
Yeah, because I mean, it's bringing me to the thought of when people talk about muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we playing into that of the repetitions of, okay, I don't have to think about this because I just know it. And if you're putting my body in this situation, then my body understands it. And like you said, with how to stand and how do I, have to have my foot and I'm going to try and accelerate and what do I need to do to get off the ground the right way? Are you doing things in training that are essentially just repetition of how they're supposed to be standing, what they're supposed to be doing, so that when it comes to that time, they're not even thinking about it?
Yeah, and again, just manipulating parameters. So for my sprinters, like we have a hill right next to the track that's only about maybe 20 meters long, but it's at an angle that if you're accelerating up that hill, automatically your body's going to be in some positions that I would prefer it to be in when we're on flat ground.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of hill sprints that are only 20 meters long. You're not getting too fatigued. You're not really, it's not like we're running 400 meters up a giant mountain. But just the positions that their bodies get in, the hip placement, the foot placement, they feel certain things accelerating up that hill that if I try to teach them on flat ground, maybe it wouldn't be as productive. So by the time we do get to flat ground, they feel those positions. With my hurdlers, I talked about the parameters of that event earlier. I never have my hurdlers train full height, full distance. So what I mean by that, the men's event, the hurdles are 30 feet apart. They're 42 inches high. Every practice we're at 36 or 39 inch hurdles, and I move them in a little bit. So for the 110 hurdles, I'll have them run at 8.9 or 8.9 meters, which is just shy of 30 feet. This way they can practice the rhythms of the race. So I always say the hurdles are the one event that I can actually go into practice. And if I have a guy that's a 1480 hurdler, I can say, hey, let's run 1450 this rep, because I can move the hurdles in, move them down, and make it so that they can actually move faster in practice than they can in the meet where they are at full height and full distance. I obviously can't do that with a sprinter. I can't have a 10-600 meter guy and say, hey, run 10-5 on this rep, because you just can't do that. But with the hurdlers, manipulating the heights, distances, things like that. I can get different adaptations from just having them hit rhythms that they're not usually capable of, so that when the gun goes off in the real race, that's what their body's wired to do. So the way that I do that with the sprinters, we do some assisted running where I have kind of pulleys and can yank them a little bit and get them moving faster. A little bit of downhill assisted sprinting, or manipulating parameters the other way, where again, we might put a little weighted sled on them so they're getting comfortable hitting positions, running them up a hill so they're in the right positions, things like that. Or even just working with different distances. So a 200-meter runner, I won't have them run 200 meters in practice. I don't do a whole lot of over distance training, so having the 200-meter runners run 300 or 400 meters in practice is not something I do often. Yeah. I actually have them come down and run 120s, 150s, things like that, where they can actually hit higher velocities than they can in a race in a 200 for a 120. And if we do, 4 of those with full recovery, they're practicing hitting those velocities. So again, by the time we get to the race, they're comfortable at certain speeds and they can kind of feel a little more kind of at ease hitting that speed.
I love the scientific side to all this right now. It's because it does get frustrating when people are like, oh, okay, all you do is you just run. They just say to a tractor, oh, you just run it. And you're like, well, there's different events. Yeah, but they're all the same. They're just running. It's like, no, they're not all the same. And there's all these different intricacies of different parts. And, there's success that Binghamton has had. And when you go to the scientific side of things and you go to how you train, it's not hard to see why there's been success there. Marcus Johnson, who, recently here is continuing to do great things, and Eric Holt as well, and Emily Mackay, to speak with the three of them and just what you could say about how they're representing Binghamton, how they're representing their family. I mean, I've had the opportunity to speak with all of them, and I'm just blown away. I mean, Marcus Johnson and all that he is doing, especially here recently, and then Eric Holt, in my brain, I have Holt and Catch Fire and all this stuff. We talk about, his speed and whatnot. And then Emily Mackay, who just has been this beacon of hope for upstate New York, that she came from upstate New York. She went to school in upstate New York, and here she is, on the world stages and heading to Tokyo. So I'd love to get, just to share with people what's been going on with Marcus, who I spoke with most recently, and, love his story and really just appreciated his time. So from Marcus to Eric to Emily, just what you could say about the representation of the Bearcats nationally, sometimes internationally, and what they've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it was really awesome being out in Eugene and having 3 Bearcat alum in the meet. There's a lot of schools that, mid-major schools, they might have one person representing them or that kind of thing. So to have 3, I think that it speaks to our program and the quality of, the rest of the staff. I mean, Coach Thompson has had a national champion in Rory Quiller, who, competed professionally for a long time too. So in all different events, in all different areas, we've had some really high level, high caliber athletes and a lot of success. I mean, Annette has done a fantastic job. What she did with Emily and Eric was awesome. And, again, I was teammates with Eric Van Ingen and Jesse Garn and those guys too, who got to that level. Yeah. So it's cool to see the history of the program, kind of pave the way for, I think, people like Marcus and Eric and Emily. Speaking to what we were talking about with COVID earlier, Emily was somebody who just, as soon as things got shut down, she made some decisions about, I want to be the person that I want to be, and just locked in and chased her dream. And look at where she's at now. So seeing in person, seeing Emily make her second world team, she ran a fantastic first round, just looked absolutely dominant. And, in the second round, there's really not much difference between first and third. You're getting your ticket to Tokyo. Yeah. So seeing her just tactically putting herself in the right positions and running, in the right kind of area of the race and just, she's developed so much as a professional and it's really cool to see just the maturity come along and talking to her before and after the race, she's just thinking about things in a different way. And, it's amazing to see what she's been doing just since she graduated from Binghamton. To Marcus, I mean, he's just kind of budding, I guess, right now. You think, okay, you're graduating from a Division I university, you made nationals, how much meat can kind of be left on the bone. But he's definitely looking to pursue a post-collegiate career. He's going to have to find a way to balance that with, being a full-time engineer and everything like that. But he's moving down to Dallas in September to pursue that. So part of taking him to this meet was, not just, hey, it's icing on the cake, it's an accomplishment. It's great that he qualified for it. A part of it was exposing him to that level of competition in that environment. Getting the jitters out of, he was, you see Ry Benjamin, 2024 Olympic champ, and his jaw is dropping. He's like, oh my God, that's Ry Benjamin. I gotta race people like that this weekend.
Yeah.
The next time around, it won't be so novel. It won't be so kind of surprising to him to see people like that. So when he makes it back to this type of meet, he'll have that experience under his belt. And then we were also able to connect with some people down in Dallas, coaches that are based out of that area, and kind of, I guess, shop him around a little bit of, hey, is there a training group that he can get plugged into? Training partners, people that can kind of push him to the next level. So meeting with those people was kind of an important part of this trip. So it wasn't just for him. It wasn't just about the race. It was about all of the things that kind of went into and around the race, and being able to, kind of springboard what that next level looks for him, which kind of segues me into Holt. Holt, I think, had immense talent, in college for whatever reason, kind of didn't make a national meet, didn't do some of the things that he had on his boxes to check and say, hey, these are things I really want to do. And he's somebody who just put his head down and bet on himself and went for it. Yeah. The story of Eric Holt, it's I would say Marcus is like one of one. He has a really unique story, being a walk-on, making an NCAA meet, and just the progress that he had and everything that he did. It's really unique. Holt is also one of one. I don't know too many people in the professional track and field world who got their first contract at 29. Seeing Eric's story has been, just nothing short of amazing. He always bets on himself and just goes for it. His words to Marcus before the race, he patted him on the shoulder and just said, go out there and be courageous, man. And I think that speaks to who Holt is. He's always, as courageous as possible, and races hard. And seeing him get a PR, I know just from talking to him, he had kind of an up and down year. Training was going well, things were clicking for him, and then he would get in the meet, and meets weren't going as well. So in the prelim round, he just locked on to Cole Hocker, who won the Olympics last year. Latched onto his hip pocket and chased him around the track, and 3:32.95 is just a world-class time. So seeing Holt, get that time and all of that was really exciting. Being able to be parts of those moments, and just running down to the rail and dapping him up after the race while he was still on the track was pretty cool. It was kind of surreal to be out there, and I'm used to watching that stuff on TV. So actually being in the stands for it was really a blast.
Yeah, and for you sharing all of that and all those pieces and all those elements, and the fact that these are one of ones, right? That Eric Holt and I remember having him here on the show, and he said, I want to get sponsored. I want to have that opportunity. I want to do that. So I was talking with him before this stuff happened. And then Marcus, and the walk-on story to being a Division I athlete, to representing the way that he's represented, to Emily Mackay, who, the 2021 Paris Olympics, for goodness sakes. We're looking at the world that the Paris Olympics coming from 2021, her being a Binghamton alum, but, looking at what she did last year with Paris to what she's doing now at Tokyo, it's speaking to the story of Binghamton University. It's speaking to the story of the class of coaches and the class of student athletes and the class of administration that exists in the Southern Tier. And I love it. And I love these conversations, Jesse, because, and I just actually wrote this in the comments here for people that are watching and listening. I said, I love the background and all the context these Binghamton conversations bring. I don't think I've had a conversation with a Binghamton coach or student athlete that hasn't caused me to ask a question that maybe I haven't asked before, to dive into a world that I haven't dove into before, and to learn something new. And so I want to say thank you, because there's such an intelligence and there's such a depth, and there's again, to go back to the word context, there's so much that I get out of these Binghamton conversations, that I sought Binghamton because I wanted to help a university that just stuck with me. It meant something to me. I wanted to work with Binghamton. I wanted to spotlight this school and everything about it. And what I've gotten from doing this for over a year now is that you have all given so much to me, and I wanted to tell the stories, and now I've gotten more from the stories than I ever thought I would get. So I want to say thank you for just the level of intelligence and the passion, the attention to detail, because the layers of this, I mean, I'm an Italian Hispanic man, proud to be, and there's so much layer to the lasagna of these conversations, I would have to say, and this one is honestly a perfect example of that. So thank you for just going beyond the typical track conversation of how do you feel and how was the run and what did it look like, to the neural side of things, to the scientific side of things, to the, you know, nuances of how you train, to what you've learned, and to what these certifications mean, to stepping out and doing different things like you've done with your student athletes to create more representation. I honestly want to say thank you for the fact that these are conversations that I feel like are few and far between, and I'm happy to make them more consistent in the world of athletics, and it's because of Binghamton. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. And you know, to that, what I would say is you know, I think track and field in general, you know, the deep dives and the backstories and context and all that are what makes the sport special. You know, I think all sports, I'm sure, share that in common. But, you know, the people are the difference. So, you know, that, I think you nailed it with Binghamton. You know, that's kind of what makes this place special, is the people. The type of student athletes we get are, you know, they're really cerebral. They're really, you know, good people. So they bring a lot to the table to kind of help us do our jobs too. So, no, I appreciate the opportunity to be on and speak with you today. And yeah, happy to share some stories.
And Jesse's entering year number 8 here, so very excited for what's coming up with that. We're going to do something called rapid fire, Jesse. We get to put each other on the hot seat. You can ask me any topic, any question. I can do the same thing. No pressure on either one of us. It's just live to people all around the world on audio and video. So whatever your first question is, go and ready.
All right. Who was the interview you got the most starstruck for?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't really get starstruck, but I will say that in the world of my entertainment show, Superpowered Pop, when we speak with creators and writers and actors and actresses and illustrators, I got to speak with the creator of Darkwing Duck. And I am a big time Darkwing Duck fan. And so Tad Stones, to speak with him, I remember exactly where I was. And when the interview ended, the woman that I was dating at the time, she did not hold the same weight to this that I did. And she walked by my studio at the time, and I was like, babe. And she's like, what? I said, I just spoke with Tad Stones. And she's like, okay. And I said, the creator of Darkwing Duck. And I was sitting there in the moment, like, it was almost like when I did the interview, because I didn't show it at all, I was just doing the interview, doing the thing. When it ended and I shut it off and hung up the phone with him, it was like I took my first breath. And I was so wowed by the fact that I got to speak with this creator of something so important in my childhood, and she didn't really care. So I will say that it was a moment of one being like, wow, this guy really got me. And also a moment of, I need to find myself a new girlfriend. So I would say that it was a double moment for me. My question back to you, Jesse. Okay, so in the same vein, do you have a moment of being starstruck at a track event where you met someone and maybe shook their hand or got to talk with them and thought to yourself, wow, I watched you on television. I can't even fathom the fact that I'm here right now?
Yeah, so that happened to me about a decade ago. So I like similar to yourself. I don't typically get starstruck. You know, I'm around track and field all the time, and I was telling Marcus this weekend, even going into the meet, like track and field people are just track and field people, man. And by the end of the weekend, he was like, "Yeah, you're right." Like he talked to Trevor Bassett, who's won a global medal, and he was like, "Oh man, he was so down to earth. He was just a regular guy." And most people are. But 10 years ago, I went to my first USTF CCCA convention. Basically, it's a 4-day long event. They get all the coaches together. We do a lot of discussions on legislation. Some of the elite coaches give symposiums about different aspects of kind of training or technique or things like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of like socialization and mingling going on. And so we were, one night down in the lobby bar hanging out, and my boss at the time, goes, "Hey, Jesse, I want you to meet somebody," and taps me on the shoulder, turns me around, and Alan Johnson is standing there, 4-time world champion in the 110 hurdles and Olympic champion in 1996, former American record holder, and guy I grew up just, he was why I got into track and field. I just remember watching him on TV as a kid going like, "Oh man, that looks like a cool event. That's what I want to do."
Yeah.
I'm 5'9". I'm a little short for being a 110 hurdler. So that was another aspect of like, people look at me and they're like, "The hurdles, really?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I remember watching Alan growing up."
Yeah.
And he's only 5'11", so again, having him as an inspiration. So in that moment where I met him, I just kind of was like, "What do I even say to this guy?" And so all that could come out was like, "Oh man, I remember watching you on TV when I was growing up." And he just started laughing. And, since then I've actually become, pretty close with him. We see each other at a lot of track meets and stuff. He's coaching at North Carolina A&T now. He's the head coach there. And so just being able to like cross paths with him and this guy who, when I was a kid, I just idolized and looked up to, seeing him now as like a regular occurrence and just being able to chop it up and talk and things like that is pretty cool. But yeah, the first time I met, I was like, "Oh, that's Alan Johnson."
Yeah, that's how I was with Tad Stones. And then he wrote back to me. He was like, "Anytime you ever want me on, I'm happy to do it. Just reach out to me." And I was like, "Okay." And I'll never forget what he said, because I said, "What was your inspiration for Darkwing Duck?" Like, he's such a different character than anything else in Disney. So how did you come to this character? I'll never forget what he said, because it's one of the coolest things in the world. And I feel like it makes people want to go to Darkwing Duck and learn about him, even if you don't know him. He said, "I imagined Batman if Batman had a daughter and remained with her to raise her, but still fought crime." And I was like, that is by far one of the greatest answers to any question in the history of mankind. Like, that was his inspiration. He's like, Batman has a daughter. He decides to raise her, but he doesn't stop being Batman. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And of all the interviews and the thousands of people that I've had the opportunity to talk with, like, that stuck with me. It's never left me that he said that. I was like, this is one of the there's moments in time where you just know somebody gave you something that is like a nugget that will always and forever be just so profoundly cool. And that really is one of those moments for me. That is
super cool.
What did you say?
That's super cool. That's an awesome answer.
Yeah. And I'm not super, listen, for you to turn around and say, hey, like, I used to watch you on TV. I mean, that's such an easy thing to say. And I love the fact of what you said, that here you are, you meet him, and in that moment you're like, wow. And now you have a relationship. Now you have a connection. Now you talk, and that's got to be one of the most rewarding things of your career, is to do what you love and love what you do. Watch somebody that you love to watch, and now they're a peer, and now you have a bond to someone that your child self would have probably passed out if you said, like, hey, I even know this guy. And now you get to talk with him and have like genuine conversations. That has to be one of the most rewarding things about your job.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even, like when Marcus was doing his like pre-meet workouts and stuff, we were at Lane Community College track, because obviously the meet's going on at Hayward, we can't be on that track. So there were tons of, Olympians and pros and everybody doing their pre-meet workouts and all that. And Dennis Mitchell was one of the coaches who was at the track, and he's worked with some really high level athletes, and Melissa Jefferson, who won the 1 and the 200 on the women's side, is one of his athletes right now. But just sitting talking to Dennis Mitchell and picking his brain on some things, and having those moments, it was really cool just being able to kind of be behind the scenes like that this weekend. But like you said, these people are peers now. It's like I'm looking at Dennis Mitchell, and one part of my brain is like, man, that's Dennis Mitchell. And the other part of my brain is like, yeah, it's just, he's just as nervous right now. His athlete's just, about to run. And,
yeah,
he's just a guy, he's just a person.
Yeah. And when you realize that, we are all people, and when you're genuine and you care and you're passionate, you could build relationships with really anybody, anywhere who's open to it. Final question for me, Jesse. What do you got?
All right. So because of the Darkwing Duck question, I imagine what era you grew up in and all that. So I got to go favorite sports moment as a fan. What is your favorite sports moment as a fan?
That's a good question. I would have to say, it's got to be when my hometown, Syracuse, New York, won the 2003 Men's Division I basketball tournament championship. I picked them to win. I was a senior in high school. I was laughed at, ridiculed, called a homer. I was one of 2 people that picked Syracuse at Christian Brothers Academy. And when Syracuse won, everybody was high-fiving, and all the people that had dogged me, disrespected me, put me down were celebrating. And I went up to them and I said, y'all need to put your hands down. Nobody had high-fived me. I got like 1 high five. I said, put your hands down. And I kept receipts. And so I went in my book bag, I took out the brackets. I was like, you picked Duke, you picked North Carolina, you picked Ohio State. I said, y'all need to stop what you're doing right now, because I was called a homer, and now y'all want to celebrate about how great this moment is, but you don't want to give credit to the guy that actually believed the moment could happen. So, right. And it's funny because then all these years later, that was 2003, 2016, I put out that Syracuse was the best team in the ACC when I voted in the ACC preseason poll. And I picked Syracuse above North Carolina in the last possible second. I flipped it. And I was the only person in America that did that. We can't see when we're voting. And I was the only person in America that voted in the ACC poll that picked Syracuse. I was ridiculed, and I was considered a mystery man. The newspaper in Syracuse wrote a story about me, reached out to me privately and said, basically, we're writing the story with or without you. Do you want to put any quotes in? And I know this newspaper well enough to know that they were going to misquote me, misrepresent me, and not put in my information. So I put out a story with all of my quotes and reasoning, and I put that out before they put theirs out so that people could see what I actually said. The story wrote me as mystery media person reveals himself. I wasn't a mystery person, Jesse. I have a free website, and my picks were up there for 8 days before their story came out. Never hid, right. Wasn't a mystery person. They did not discover me. I was, again, ridiculed at times, and they pitched this story without really giving the context of why I chose Syracuse. Well, doesn't Syracuse end up going to the Final Four with North Carolina, representing half of the nation with the ACC? And my dad looked at me and he goes, did the newspaper contact you? No. Did they ask you to do a follow-up? No. Did they say anything about you being right? No. And so I just find it funny because I see the person that wrote the article all the time. And I just, I have to fight myself from leaning in and going, did it really kill y'all over at the newspaper when you saw me be right after you thought it was going to be a really funny story about an idiot in Syracuse? So, I will say that was a proud moment in 2003, but in 2016 was also a proud moment, again, when I stuck my neck out, apparently, for this team that I believed in. And, Mike Benajay, Trevor Cooney, Malachi Richardson, Tyler Lydon, and so on and so forth. And to be the only person, and to actually be able to say that when it was used against me, I was the only person in America, but when I was right, I was the only person in America. So, yes. I do like moments like that, and that's why I would tell people, believe in what you believe in, not because the herd is in that direction, but because you truly actually believe in it.
Yeah.
My question back to you, Jesse, if you were going to interview anyone in the track world today, who would you want to sit down to if you could have an exclusive? No one else in the world is going to talk to this person, and it's going to be Jesse Fuca featuring blank. Who's that person and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. There's a lot of different directions I could go with this one. Man. So my biggest thing right now is that I think track and field is an underrated sport.
Agreed.
So you got to get personalities out there. You got to find a way to market the sport. So I would say Tara Davis, just because of her personality.
Okay.
She is currently the best long jumper in the world. She is a ball of personality. She went to the University of Texas. She's always wearing a cowboy hat. She's, just this electric, great personality. So I would definitely sit down with her. I feel like she's the type of person that if you can give her enough of a platform, people will gravitate in that direction. So just getting eyes on, the screen and getting fans in the stands and all that kind of stuff. I feel like, track and field has to figure out a way to market those people, and she's definitely one of those people.
I love it. I appreciate it. And, I love the fact that she is unapologetically herself. Like you said, wear that cowboy hat and wear it proudly. And, some people might come and make fun of her, and I'm sure that they do, but she has to come to a point where she's the one that owns the energy in the room instead of the energy owning her. And I respect that. And I actually have a cowboy hat right off camera. So shout out to her for that. Jesse.
Yeah, and her husband is double amputee Paralympian as well. 45.7, I believe he ran, 45.8 in the 400 this weekend to win a national title and make the World Paralympic Games. So those two together, they're just a dynamic duo. They're something else. But yeah, no, I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy that you shared that story as well. Again, no excuses. What did Gandhi say? They can chain down my body, but they can't chain down my spirit. And so when you talk about in the Paralympian world to go out there, some people might say, I'm a double amputee. I'm an amputee in general. I'm going to sit in my house and live off the government, feel bad for myself. And here's somebody that's going out there winning championships and qualifying to put themselves on the world stage. So life is about what you make it, not how people want to make you. Jesse Fuca, appreciate it. It's first time on the show, but I'm going to have you back because this was way too much fun for me. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
I'll talk to you soon, okay? And take care.
Stounds great.
That coming once again from Jesse Fuca here inside of our Bearcat Breakroom with the Binghamton University Bearcats, telling stories of your Bearcats unlike what you're going to see anywhere else. And that happening for you every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the Binghamton University Bearcats. Great Lakes Honda City Studios. We're going to take one more step aside, come back with the ingredients to success right after this. Stay with us.
In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they're always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, but it's definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Bryan and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Bryan and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Life gets busy, and sometimes that means us running around. So K9 Camp Dog Daycare offers you an opportunity to give your dog a place to stay while you take care of what you need to throughout the day. K9 Camp Dog Daycare is located on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, New York. You can see it from the highway, and it's just off of Erie Boulevard across from BJ's Wholesale Club. Call 315-437-7110. That's 315-437-7110 to schedule an appointment to bring your dog in and tour the facility. Appointments are Monday through Thursday after 6:30, where you and your dog can see everything that K9 Camp Dog Daycare has to offer, including a self-serve dog wash and a retail store filled with all of your dog's wants and needs, including food, treats, harnesses, leashes, and more, making K9 Camp Dog Daycare your one-stop shop for your furry-loving friend. Right, Lily?
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvelange, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Club in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. You will find GG Cards and Breaks open for you Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. So make sure you make your way over to GG Cards and Breaks today and let them know the DT sent you. It's a place where we can all be big kids and just have fun in our community. And who doesn't love doing that? So if you live in central and upstate New York, head to GG Cards and Breaks. And when somebody comes to visit you from out of town, bring them over to the place where we can be big kids no matter what our age is, and we can get closer to the teams we love, the players that we love, and of course the games and characters that we love as well. GG Cards and Breaks with all the supplies you need, as well as packs and so many other wonderful things. Head to GG Cards and Breaks today. And thank you to GG Cards and Breaks for all that you do to be the wonderful place that you are. We appreciate you so very much, and I cannot thank them enough for their positivity and just everything that they bring to the table. GG Cards and Breaks. Much appreciation for all that you do. With that being said, it's time for us to jump in to our final piece inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, and that is to bring you our conversation in the world of the ingredients to success. The ingredients to success are proudly presented by the wonderful team at Avicolli's. Avicolli's is open 7 days a week, now open on Mondays, so you could find them Monday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. Of course, only drink if you're of age and drink responsibly always. And head over to Avicolli's every single day of the week for Italian food that is so awesome and great. And it's just, I mean, listen, Avicolli's, it hits a certain taste bud that other places don't. So get over to Avicolli's today. John Fratto and the team, and of course the Avicolli family, we thank you and appreciate you so very much for all that you do in our community for many decades. Today's topic for the ingredients to success: choose your company wisely. Choose your company wisely. I want to let you all know that when it comes to who you choose, it is time to really look at your life. It is time to be honest with yourself. And it's time to be honest with what you've allowed in your life, maybe what you haven't, because we are the company we keep. And we may want to fight that and say, no, we're not. We're not the company we keep. You are. You are the company you keep. You are what you surround yourself with. That can either be a positive, great effect on your life, or it could be a very detrimental effect on your life. It's something that you have to be very cognizant of at all times. You are the company you keep. And I cannot express this enough, right? Because our health has to do with this. It affects your health. The company you keep, that affects your health. The people you surround yourself with, that it affects your day-to-day. And when I ask you to think about choosing your company wisely, my question comes to you: who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you have friends and family that are just super dramatic and they talk about people all the time? And oh my gosh, did you see what Jill was wearing? And did you hear what Steve said today? And I can't imagine why these people are still married. And I don't think they love each other. And I think this is this. And I think this is that. And I think this person's cheating on this person. I think this person's lying. The drama. The drama. Are you around it? Do you support it? Are you a part of it? These are all questions that you have to really look at in your life. What are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounded by people that are glass half full? Or are you surrounded by people that are glass half empty? People that every time you have something positive to say, they're like, yeah, but there's something negative. Like, oh, it's such a beautiful day and it's so nice outside and there's a breeze. And they're like, yeah, but it's foggy. And you're like, oh, I'm so happy it's summer. Yeah, but it's too hot. Oh, but at least it's not snowing. Well, you know what? I could take some snow right now. I'm too hot. The people that find a problem to every positive thing that comes out of your mouth. Those are not people you want to associate with. And see, sometimes we stick around people because we feel bad for them, right? Well, I don't really like being around them and they bring me down and it's really depressing and it's sad. And every time I'm with them, I just feel like my energy goes to the negative and I feel like I have to talk myself through things after I'm around this person because they're just such a negative person and it affects me so much. Why would you want to be around that? Well, I feel bad. They don't have any friends. I feel bad if I don't hang around with them, then who would? People say things like that. My question back to you is it worth your health? That person's made a decision to be negative. And I'm not saying don't be around and don't be supportive and don't be loving. But I've had people in my life that, I spend time with that are super, super positive. And I've had people in my life that I spend time with that are super, super negative. And I love them both so dearly, but it became I love them both dearly, period. It became difficult to be around the negative person though. It became a task. I had to put on my armor. I had to pray to God before I went there. God, I'm positive. God, I'm having a good day. I just got myself to a positive state. Please don't let this person bring me down. I had to pray before I went to visit them and ask God to help me be okay with whatever they say and whatever they do because I knew that it was going to be trying. I'm not saying don't love people, and I'm not saying that you don't meet people where they're at. I'm saying that putting yourself around a negative person is not going to be healthy for you. Whether you say that, they have no friends or you feel sorry for them or whatever the reason may be, they're still affecting you in a negative way. They're still bringing you down. They're still making it really hard for you to be positive, right? You shouldn't be leaving conversations with people where you feel like there's like soot on you, that you feel like talking with this person has essentially been like tying anchors around your ankles and thrown you in the ocean. It is hard to talk to people that are negative, and it's hard to continue to be around people that are negative. And some of us feel so bad for those people that we stick around them because we feel bad for them, because we feel like, who's going to be here with them if we're not? But who's taking care of you? And it's not being selfish. I love when people say this. And when I say love, I'm obviously being sarcastic. I love when you go to take care of yourself and people say that you're being selfish, that taking care of yourself equals selfishness. No, being selfish is saying my way or the highway. Taking care of yourself is taking care of yourself. And anybody that tries to make you feel bad for taking care of yourself, in my opinion, must really not care about you, or doesn't care about you as much as that they care about themselves, right? Or they don't care about you beyond what you do to help them and what you give them, right? They care about you as long as you take care of them. But once you stop taking care of them, all of a sudden you're selfish now. And you have to be very focused on who you're spending your time with, because you will run into people that when you go to take care of yourself, when you get away from drama, when you distance yourself from people that are bringing you down and feeling like an anvil in your life, those people might attack you and they might go after your peace and turn it into, well, it's not your peace. It's just you not being there for me. You said you'd always be here. You said you'd always care. I've been around people like that where they're dramatic, they're hateful, they're not kind, they're selfish, they take from you, they're a leech of your energy. And then when you turn around and go, hey, you know what? I don't like this. They go, well, I thought you said you'd always be here. I thought you said you were always going to be, love me and take care of me and be here for me. If you leave me right now, you're a liar. Look at you out here lying, doing things and not caring about people. That's not the case at all. The case is simply you have every right to take care of your health. And when taking care of someone else ends up putting you in a place where now you're sick, that's not a good thing, right? My parents have tried to teach me that forever. They're like, when you're in a relationship with someone and you're taking care of them, being there for them, helping them, loving them up and all that, and they're doing the opposite for you, they're bringing you down, they're making you feel some kind of way about yourself, you're negative, you start talking negatively upon yourself, you start treating yourself poorly. It's like, yeah, you're taking care of them, but what are they doing? Are they taking care of you, or is helping them hurting you? And that's something that we always have to be honest with ourselves about, is sometimes helping someone else, depending on how that person is and how they treat you, helping someone could result in hurting yourself. And it's not selfish to say, I don't want to hurt myself by helping somebody, because I don't think that person that you're helping would want to hurt themselves to help you. It's amazing what people ask for, but they're not willing to give. They'll ask you to drop everything for them, but if they had all the time in the world and all the availability in the world, they wouldn't help you. Isn't that something? The people that ask for the most from you would give you the least. So you have to really pay attention to that. Who am I surrounding myself with? How is my time with that person affecting me? How am I treating myself? How am I acting toward myself as an effect of this person being around me? I want you to really start asking yourself these questions. Because those of us that are not willing to ask ourselves the difficult questions are the ones that typically settle or get caught up in things that are not healthy for us. You have to make a decision on your life, and that's a decision every day. Do you choose yourself? Do you care about yourself? Do you value yourself? Do you value your health? Do you value your safety? Do you value your well-being? Are you taking care of you? Because there is that old saying, and the saying's very true, if you don't take care of you, who is going to? So how do you choose your company wisely? Well, you ask God for discernment. It's a word I ran away from when I was dating this one girl, because she kept talking to me about discerning if we should be together. Discern. Are we supposed to discern? And I heard it all the time. We're dating and everything's great. Now all of a sudden she's discerning if we're supposed to be together. And then she's discerning it again. And I ran from the word because every time she brought it up, I felt like she was deciding, do I choose you? Do I choose you? I chose you yesterday. Do I choose you today? And that's a lot of it's waking up every day with someone telling you, I could break up with you or I could marry you. And that's a lot of pressure. And it's also a lot of just like constant being in flux, which a relationship shouldn't be. So discernment, by definition, is the ability to judge well. In Christian context, it's the perception in the absence of judgment with a view to obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. Perceptions in the absence of judgment. So you're trying to perceive something without judging it and trying to obtain spiritual guidance and understanding. Asking God to help you to know. So when you're picking the people that you're putting around you, I would ask God for discernment. I would ask God to allow you to, without judgment, be able to direct your path and help you to know what type of people you should be around. You should also look at how you feel when you're around these people. How does your energy change for the bad or the good? We shouldn't let anybody change our energy, by the way, or how we think of ourselves or how we treat ourselves. I'm saying that off the jump because it's something I've had to learn and continue to learn today, and something I just talked about. But it is very, very important to look at how you feel about yourself and how your energy changes, right? You could be a very confident person, a very strong-willed person, but when you're around this person, you feel like they're just a weight, like they make you tired, lethargic, depressed, down. You shouldn't let anybody change your mood. I'm just saying that if and when somebody does, when I'm around this person, am I more myself? Am I more distant? Do I feel like I can speak freely? Do I feel like I have to watch everything I say? So ask God for discernment. Look at how your mood can be altered. You shouldn't let it be altered, but if it is, look at how your mood is altered. Look at how you talk. Can you be open? Can you be honest? Do you have to be a version of yourself, or can you be your true self? So that's something else to look at when we're looking at the ingredients to success of choosing your company wisely. And just, how people treat you, how they make you feel, right? Some of this is common sense. When I'm around this person, is it happy and positive and good? Is it uplifting? Is it consistent? Is it inconsistent? Is it always in flux? Is it a roller coaster? Or do I feel like, good, bad, or indifferent, we're always nice to each other? Life is not going to be perfect. You're going to have arguments. Situations are going to happen. Things are going to change. Elements out of your control are going to come into focus. But is this person consistently good to you? It's a question. And also, choosing your company wisely is understanding something I had to understand, because it was the opposite, was literally like just shoved into my forehead as a child, is that you have to accept the abuse of family because they're family. There's no one on this planet that should ever ask you to accept something from anybody that's detrimental to your health. And I have people in my family that say to me, if a friend swears at you and calls you names, get rid of them. If a cousin does it, you still got to love them. And that is bad advice. So do not let blood be a determinant of who you're around. Be around those that treat you well. I don't care if they're blood. I don't care if it's a stranger. I don't care if it's someone you've known for 5 minutes or someone you've known for 50 years. Sometimes the person you've known for 5 minutes makes you, or you feel better around them than you feel around the people you've known your whole life. So be cognizant of how you feel around others. Pay attention to it, and just know where you're valued. Just really know where you're valued, because that's where you should be. You should be where you are treated well. So choosing your company wisely, it's not about who's my family member. It's not about, who buys me the nicest things. It's not about who beefs up my ego. It's who genuinely is consistently good to you, treats you well, respects you, and when you're around them, you feel like it's uplifting to your life. It's not an anvil, it's wings. You want to be around people that give you wings, not people that tie a rope around you, throw an anvil on that rope, and then let go and just see you fall. Okay, the people that love you the most are the ones that should treat you the best. When somebody goes, I love you, but they don't treat you well, you got to understand that words are words, actions speak louder. And people can say whatever they want to say, but that statement is very true. Actions speak louder than words. I remember somebody, we were talking, and I was just talking to them about how I didn't like our relationship. I didn't like the way I was being treated. And I didn't like some of the actions they were taking because I thought it was detrimental to us having a good relationship. And they yelled at me, I effing love you. Don't you get that? And screaming in someone's face, number one, doesn't sound like love. And swearing and saying, I effing love you, that's the way that they said it. to me, it's like, that doesn't sound like love. And it was just the irony of hearing somebody yell and swear at you about how much they love you that absolutely proved that they didn't. So, actions speak louder than words when you're choosing the company that you're keeping. Remember that actions do speak louder than words. So that's some advice on just looking at the company you keep and paying attention to it. Paying attention to how you feel when you're around certain people. Paying attention to the energy. And not being around someone out of guilt or you should not be around anybody unless you want to be. You shouldn't be around them out of guilt. You shouldn't be around them because they buy you stuff or they boost up your ego and make you feel well and this, that, and whatever. You should only be around people, places, and things that you feel most like yourself, that you can be yourself, and you feel valued, you feel important, and you're treated with respect. Any other company is not worth keeping. This has been a message from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in the Ingredients to Success, proudly presented by the wonderful team at Avicolli's, on the topic today of choosing your company wisely. Make sure that you do that every day. You can't do it sometimes, can't do it when you feel like it, and you can't just do it with some people. You have to be consistent, and you have to do this all the time. And just because someone's been in your life for 10 years doesn't mean they get to stay. Again, how do you feel when you're around them? How do they treat you? And whoever they are most of the time, that's their true person. So you could say, well, this person treats me good sometimes. Most of the time they treat me good. Well, I want to look at someone who consistently is being good to me. Not when it's convenient, not when they want something, not when they feel like it, but someone who is consistently good to me because that is what they want to do. It's how they feel about me, and because I truly, genuinely matter to that person. Those are the only people that you should be around. The people that consistently choose you and treat you with the respect that everyone should have. Yes, respect is something that you earn, but it's also something that you cannot afford to be in a relationship without. Ingredients to Success, Avicolli's. They know the ingredients best because they're making that awesome food for lunch and dinner that we love to have on site on location at 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, right down the street from Liverpool High School and the home of all of our Liverpool broadcasts that we do with the athletic student athletes as well as their coaches and the administration. Make sure you come out and see our live broadcasts on site on location at Avicolli's every single month. And make sure you head to Avicolli's today for lunch, dinner, and drinks. And of course, make sure that you get in touch with Avicolli's to order online at myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. And you can also get catering, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-622-5100 to Avicolli's. That's 315-622-5100. Make sure you get in touch with them today and let them know that DT sent you. With all that being said, I cannot say enough about Avicolli's and all that they've done here as a great partner. And the more I talk about them, the hungrier I get, which means it's working. So with that being said, head out there today and enjoy their awesome food, atmosphere, and supporting local. Because when you support local, it feels good, right? You're giving back to your own community. So why not do something like that? With that being said, I want to thank you for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, right here with us up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So however you're connected with the show, I thank you for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, and can't thank you enough for your support over all these many years. You can also find Wake Up Call by going to any one of our channels on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, as well as Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you got to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure you do that today, and you can subscribe to us on any one of these channels for free. Big time thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle down in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Go and visit them today and let them know that DT sent you to 1788 Old Morganskin Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, right down the road from Pinehurst Golf Course. And many thanks to our incredible team of partners in Central and Upstate New York that I cannot thank enough for being a part of the family. That being Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Brian's Landing, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, Avicolli's, Chick-fil-A DeWitt, which will be opening this Thursday, August 7th, in their grand opening right there at the corner of Bridge and Erie. We look forward to seeing you out there. And of course, Wake Up Call is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Binghamton University Bearcats. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse here. Got ahead of myself. So, proud exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bobcats of Syracuse. Bryan and Stratton Syracuse Bobcats. Find them every single month, including our exclusive that aired yesterday during the show and is now its own video on YouTube and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT. The Bobcat Buzz coming to you with student athletes, coaches, administration, as well as alumni. You could find all of our content by going to youtube.com /Wake Up Call DT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, find the BSC Syracuse playlist. The Bobcats are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Binghamton University Bearcats. Find your Bearcats during Bearcat Time every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Today we were a little bit later because Jesse Fuca had to go at 10:30, but you can find us here with the Bearcats during Bearcat Time every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, telling the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And of course, you can find the Bearcats by going to youtube.com /Wake Up Call DT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Binghamton playlist. You'll also find the Bearcats on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I want to thank all of our guests inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics for the day. Thank you to the Syracuse University. Thank you to Syracuse University, the football team, Fran Brown, the coaching staff, and the athletic department for letting us into practice. I'm excited to be there today. By the grace of God, stay tuned for all of our interviews, and I just shared even more from them, so make sure you check them out. Thanks to Trip Durham, the founder and decision maker of 2D Consulting LLC, and all the work that he does with the ACC, and in general being an MC and a host. Many thanks to Jesse Fuca for joining us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in this edition of the Bearcat Breakroom. Truly appreciate Jesse and all the work he does with men's and women's track and field, and as a recruiting coordinator in general for them, as well as an assistant coach. Many thanks to him for his incredible background and depth of the conversation. Look forward to having Jesse back soon. And the ingredients to success from Avicolli's, focusing on choosing your company wisely. With all of that being said, I thank you for supporting my company, Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and of course, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT, a big way that you can do that. You can also go to our shop and support our show here on Wake Up Call, as well as Superpowered Pop, Do Diz with Dan, Comic Book Trails, and you can support the company as a whole by going to our website, and I will be sharing that on our social media. We thank you for your support and your love. For now, from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, I say God bless, no stress, do your best. We'll talk soon.